Chapter 3876. Jochin Xiu's entire disguise process was quite complicated. It could be said that it was an absolute one-to-one beyond a imitation. The arc of the eyebrows, the length, the height of the nose, and the asymmetry of the left and right cheekbones were almost invisible to the naked eye. All of this was so precise. The legend's lower eyelashes were a little longer, the upper eyelashes were a little shorter, and the thickness of the double eyelids were enough to determine success or failure in the eyes of Jochin Xiu. There was a good saying that attitude determined everything, and details determined success or failure. Su Yun and Gu Qia were amazed again and again. Jochin Xiu could even notice places like the oracle. It was too magical, really too magical. The whole process lasted for about 6 hours. Jochin Xiu, who had entered the working state, had no sleepiness at all. The legend couldn't stand it anymore, but under Lin Ji's urging, he had to bite the bullet and sit. The last step was the hair. Fortunately, the hair of the two people was about the same length, but the hairstyles were different. Jochin Xiu's hairstyling technique was absolutely superior to many first-tier hairdressers. After everything was done, Su Yun couldn't tell the difference between Lin Gu and the legend with the naked eye. The title of the number one in disguise was really not for nothing. Mr. Ninth Elder, your disguise skills are simply uncanny. Su Yun exclaimed in amazement, I've finally witnessed it today. Lin Gu went to the mirror as soon as he finished. He was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth for a long time. How did you do it? My God, even if there is a high-tech facial recognition system, it is impossible to recognize me. Even I can't see my own shadow. No one could feel what Lin Gu felt now. He felt that his soul had entered another person's body. Isn't this a bit too terrifying? To be honest, Lin Gu really suspected that his soul had entered the body of a legend. The legend was also frightened. A person who looked exactly like him was standing in front of him. He didn't want to believe what he saw with his eyes, but he had to believe it. It was a miracle. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that such a person existed. That's impossible. The legend shook his head in disbelief. How is that possible? Come on, cooperate with me. Your fingerprints. Now he needed to make a fingerprint cover. As long as he put it on Lin Ji's finger, there would be no difference between Lin Gu and a legend. As long as it was a facial recognition system and a fingerprint recognition system, it could be easily fooled. The legendary battle pet warrior hesitated for a moment, then silently reached out his left hand. At this moment, he made a mental note. This might be his last chance. Do you think I'm not smart enough? Jochin Xiu smiled slightly. At this time, anyone will look for the last chance for themselves. You are willing to give me your left hand, which means that all your fingerprints for the fingerprint identification password are on your right hand. The legendary battle pet warrior was stunned. We already knew that you would play this trick. Lin Gu said, even at a time like this, you're still trying to be petty. You really won't give up. Just in case, we decided to collect all the fingerprints on your hands. All of them, every finger. Su Yun said faintly. There were 10 fingers on each hand, and 3 sets of fingerprints for each finger. Jochin Xiu could ensure that there would be no mistakes. Although this last step was a bit complicated, it was also a very critical step. When you took us home, I noticed that he used the middle finger of his right hand to identify the door when he opened it. Su Yun said, at least I can conclude that the fingerprint lock of your house is the middle finger of the right hand. The legendary battle pet warrior didn't want to talk now. He felt that no matter how he struggled, he couldn't escape his final fate. Forget it. The legendary battle pet warrior, who gave up on himself, was very cooperative with Jochin Xiu and collected his fingerprints. Finally, he slumped on the ground, looking hopeless. If I knew this, I really should cooperate with you. Can I cooperate with you now? Give me a chance. I already know that you can clone a brand new me. I will definitely cooperate with you, the legendary battle pet warrior said with a dull gaze. But it doesn't make sense for you to say this now. It's too late. Su Yun said, we have wasted so much energy to do such a thing, and you only say that you will cooperate now? If that's the case, then everything we've done would be meaningless. The legendary battle pet warrior shook his head with a wry smile. Lin Gu sneered, I tell you, I am very uncomfortable and awkward now, so don't say anything that makes me want to beat you. I really can't control myself. Lin Ji's face had been modified countless times. He was definitely uncomfortable. Although I want to wash my face clean, I can bear it. When I finish what you have to do, I will stick all these things on your face and let you have a taste of it. Lin Gu glared at the legendary battle pet warrior. If it weren't for you, a bastard, being so careless, I wouldn't have to suffer this. I know I was wrong, really. The legendary battle pet warrior said, but you don't want to give me a chance. Gu Chia said to the legendary battle pet warrior, I believe that Su Yun will give you a chance first. He gave you a chance because you didn't want it. No one will keep giving you chances. Before they succeed, you can only stay here. The legendary battle pet warrior glanced at Gu Chia. Are you going to keep me here? Of course, Gu Chia said. When Su Yun tells me that I can set you free, I will let you go. The legendary battle pet warrior murmured to himself, You better not let me go. When he says that, I will have nothing left. At least I can have food to eat here. At least I won't starve to death here. Ha ha ha, Gu Chia said bluntly, this is not a welfare station. I may be willing to raise a few stray dogs, but I won't raise you. Gu Chia looked down on the tramps in the United States from the bottom of her heart. Many strong people chose to be tramps because of their laziness. They lived on the food provided by the shelter every day. It was a waste of resources to keep them alive. And there were so many of them in the United States that it made one's hair stand on end. Sometimes, the food provided by the shelter was not enough. More and more people were coming to the shelter every day. If there was a decrease, it was usually due to sudden death due to drug abuse, or due to drug disputes at the hands of drug traffickers. These people's fates and outcomes were the same, but there were still people joining the ranks every day. Gu Chia believed that if she threw the legendary battle pet warrior out, he would join the line the next day. He would go to the shelter to get food, ask the nuns to fill his stomach, and sleep in a warm trash can at night. No, he wouldn't even be able to find a good trash can. You know what? Even if you live on the streets, you will be the most miserable one among the homeless. Gu Chia shook her head helplessly. I believe many of them will be interested in such a tender homeless man like you. Don't say any more. I can already see my own future. The legendary battle pet warrior smiled pitifully. You are forcing me into a dead end. What can I do? Ha ha ha. I'd rather die. A bad life is better than a good death. I'm giving you a way out. You should be grateful, Su Yun said calmly. The legendary battle pet warrior looked at Su Yun. You're giving me a way out? What kind of way is that? Do you know how much money you've taken from me? Billions of dollars. Everything I have in the United States is worth at least billions. You've taken it all. Even if you leave me $1 million, that's fine. $1 million? Su Yun sneered. Why should I leave it to you? The legendary battle pet warrior was stunned. It was all his money. Why couldn't he just take $1 million? You'd better be clear that nothing here belongs to you. Su Yun said, all the money here belongs to Huaxia. It's all the capital flowing out of Huaxia. You should be happy that I didn't hold you responsible. The legendary battle pet warrior snorted. Fine, I should be happy. Humph, let me tell you, if the current system isn't tightened, many people will still transfer your so-called capital out of Huaxia through loopholes. Chapter 3877. Su Yun had been waiting for the legendary battle pet warrior to say that. Now that the legendary battle pet warrior had said that, it meant that there was a perfect system in the United States. It was specifically designed to allow the corrupt Huaxia parasites to transfer funds out of the country. So, you know a lot of people, Su Yun smiled and said, tell me, who is in charge of laundering money for you in the American Empire? The legend was stunned. He did not expect Su Yun to suddenly ask such a question. He shook his head and said, I don't know what you are talking about. I didn't ask you before because I knew that if I asked, you would definitely play dumb. But I couldn't be sure if you really didn't know, or if you were just pretending. Su Yun said, after all, in this matter of your family, your father is the mastermind, and you are at most a puppet. The legend actually hated to hear such words. He always thought that he was not bad, but that his father did not give him power. To put it more conceitedly, the legend thought that if his father was willing to give him power, he might be able to do better than his father. That was the most conceited thing about the legend. If you know something, it's best to tell me more. Su Yun said, if you tell me enough, maybe I can leave you some money after you are kicked out. If you don't tell me anything, you might not even have a single piece of clothing left. Gu Chia said to Fathead, when you kick him out, don't leave him any money. Understood, miss. Fathead agreed immediately. He would not treat these words as a joke. Whatever Gu Chia asked him to do, he would do it without any hesitation. You don't have to go that far. The legend glared and said, I'm already like this. What else do you want me to say? What else do you want to know? It's meaningless, okay? Of course it is. Su Yun said, I know that your money needs to be cleaned a second time after it comes to the American Empire. Otherwise, your money will still be dirty. Now, I want to know who is in charge of cleaning your money in the American Empire. That's the American Empire's business. It doesn't matter if you know or not, right? Said the legend. He did not dare to speak carelessly because he was worried that if he was found out, he would be dead meat. The American Empire's money launderers were not to be messed with. These guys could kill him in a matter of minutes. Moreover, they were all greedy people who only cared about money and not people. To be able to build a perfect money laundering system in the United States is naturally not something that an ordinary person can do. Su Yun nodded. I don't need you to remind me of that. I know that foreigners can't establish themselves in this industry in the American Empire. The legend lowered his head and did not say anything. He did not want to continue this topic. Many people would transfer their money into the American Empire through such connections, and then let the person in charge of the American Empire clean up the money a second time. Then, you'll be able to spend it comfortably. Su Yun said, Legend, are you really willing to do that? There are so many damn bastards in China who are transferring China's capital abroad, and only your family is unlucky, but the others can still get away with it? People like you can still enjoy life in New York, pick up girls in Los Angeles, and enjoy the sunshine in Miami. Are you willing to accept this? The legend's face suddenly froze. He raised his head and looked at Su Yun. Su Yun smiled. If you tell me this person, maybe those guys will lose everything like you. Don't you want them to be like you? That's the only way to be fair. Otherwise, the world will be too unfair to you. The legend's face was trembling. I've always believed in fairness. Su Yun said, why don't people like you get punished? Why can they continue to enjoy life? But you've been reduced to this state. The legend clenched his fists. His heart was seriously twisted by Su Yun's words. He was very, very unwilling to accept this. He felt that Su Yun was right. Why should his family be reduced to this state? Everyone was doing the same thing. Why could others continue to enjoy life while he became a pauper who had nothing? He had to turn those guys into people like him. Only then would he be able to feel at ease. That was the only way to be fair. Otherwise, the world would be too unfair. The legend was struggling in his heart. If you tell me, maybe I can let you live better than the others. Su Yun said, consider this as atonement for your crimes. If you can atone for your crimes, those people will be reduced to nothing. Perhaps I will get Miss Gu to help you set up a small business in Seattle. Do some small business. That was a great offer for the legend. His eyes instantly lit up. You're saying that if I'm willing to tell you, you'll leave me a way out? You won't let me live a worthless life in this world? That's right. Su Yun nodded. Maybe I'll give you some capital and let you start a small service business. As long as you're willing to do it, at least you won't have to worry about food and clothing in the United States. The legend of legend was overjoyed. The service industry was great. If Su Yun invested in a bar, or a club, or a massage center, it would be enough for the legend. Such a business would be enough for him to live a good life in the United States. Such an investment wouldn't cost much in the United States. About $500,000 would be enough to set up a shop, decorate, and hire people. $500,000 was a little tight, but it was enough. This was a small business in the legend's eyes. But in Su Yun's eyes, it wasn't a small business. In Su Yun's eyes, a small business was building a shelf, a stool, a few bottles of shoe polish, and a few brushes and cloth to polish shoes. Only things like polishing shoes on the street were considered small businesses. That was what the legend should do. If he bought all these things in the United States, it would cost at least $50. $50 was not to be underestimated. It was enough for him to earn enough to eat every day. "How much are you going to give me?" the legend asked cautiously. Su Yun held up 5 fingers. 50. The legend of 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 the but Su Yun did say that it was $50. It had nothing to do with $500,000. The legend swallowed. 500,000. With 500,000, he would be much stronger than many people in the United States. After all, it was hard to find an ordinary person with $50,000 in savings in the United States these days. If those fellows like him were to be dragged down by Su Yun and become penniless fellows, then with 500,000 yuan, he would be considered a rich person among these fellows. This disparity gave the legend an unlimited amount of motivation. What do you think? It's not a small amount. You should be content with what you have, Su Yun said. $50 was 300 yuan. Su Yun felt it was a waste to give him that money. After all, this bastard father and son had wasted too much of Hua Xia's capital. It was a crime to spend more. I know. Let me think about it, the legend said. Lin Gu spat. What's there to think about? If you don't want to do it, we can find someone else who is willing to do it. You won't even have $50. The $50 will belong to someone else, and that person will take it to do business. You can continue to eat dirt naked in the trash. Hearing Lin Ji's words, the legend couldn't help but feel nervous. If Su Yun could mess with him, he could do the same to others. There would be competition for this betrayal. Once there was competition, wouldn't he be eating dirt? Think about how many things you've done that you regret. Do you think that if you don't cooperate, we won't be able to solve it? Lin Gu snorted. I can even become you now, let alone other things. I'll cooperate. The legend agreed without hesitation. Chapter 3878. When Su Yun and Lin Gu, who had disguised themselves as a legend, returned to Los Angeles again, it was already 10 days after they had caused trouble in Los Angeles. When this large Ford pickup truck that the Los Angeles police had been looking for entered California again, the police had already set their sights on it. However, what surprised the police was that they actually walked right into the trap and went straight to Los Angeles. In order not to alert the enemy, the Los Angeles police did not do anything. Instead, they prepared a huge encirclement and waited for them to enter the encirclement. Then, they directly tied the pockets. Su Yun and Lin Gu were already mentally prepared for what they might encounter on their return to Los Angeles this time, so when they entered Los Angeles, they were not surprised to be surrounded by the police. What surprised the police was that the person they were supposed to protect, Carlos, was actually unscathed and was sitting upright in the car. The rich people in the United States were very arrogant. This was a country of capital, and the situation was not the same as Hua Xia. No matter how rich the local people in Hua Xia were, it was impossible for them to point at the local police and scold them. No matter how rich they were, they would not dare to provoke them. However, the United States was different. Lin Gu had already done his homework. He shouted in English at the sheriff who came forward to attack Su Yun. "You bunch of useless trash. F***CKU. Lin Gu glared and said, "What were you doing when I needed you? Now that I'm back, you still want to arrest me? Is there something wrong with you? Or is it that you bunch of trash don't want to do anything? This is the person who saved me. If you dare to touch him, I will complain to you until you lose your job and your rice bowl." The group of Los Angeles police completely lost their temper in the face of the roar of Mr. Carlos. Everyone was very clear about who could be provoked and who could not be provoked. Rich people were not to be provoked. This sentence was very popular in the United States. Sometimes, they would rather offend people with power than people with money. After all, anything could happen in the United States of America as long as one had money. As long as one was willing to throw in money like crazy and learn some psychological tricks, one might even be able to become a president. That was why the rich people in the United States of America were the ones that one could not afford to offend. The two policemen who wanted to restrain Su Yun quickly let go and looked at Su Yun with a panicked expression. They didn't even understand what had happened. "If I counted on you Los Angeles cops, I would have been dead a long time ago." Lin Gu glared and said, "If you don't want me to complain about you, you better not appear in front of me during this period of time. I feel annoyed just by seeing you." Under Lin Ge's fury, all the police officers retreated one after another. The sheriff leading the team came forward to apologize. "Mr. Carlos, there must be a misunderstanding between us. The other party is too cunning. You know that once the criminal leaves California, we don't have the authority to pursue them. Our system is... You don't have to explain these useless things to me." Lin Gu waved his hand impatiently. "I don't want to listen to your explanations now, and I don't want to see you. Do you understand? Don't provoke me, don't bother me, and don't appear in front of me again. This is my only request for you. If you appear in front of me again, I promise I will complain about each and every one of you until you lose your jobs." This was not a joke. If the rich people in the United States of America wanted to do such things, it was easy and very simple. For someone like Lin Gu, it was even easier to complain about the police until they lost their jobs. He just needed to call the governor and tell the governor that if these policemen continue to do such things, he would move out of California and the governor would immediately fire his subordinates. The economic contribution of a rich person in Huaxia to a state was not even comparable to 100,000 American locals. Especially in an international megacity like Los Angeles, a metropolis whose GDP was ranked only behind New York and Tokyo. One less rich person was equivalent to losing a piece of meat. Moreover, these rich people in Huaxia had connections. If one person said that Los Angeles was not good, it was likely that a large number of people would leave. Once that happened, Los Angeles would have no hope of catching up with New York. Therefore, the rich people in such cities contributed too much to the city. The Americans knew very well why New York and Los Angeles were so rich. In fact, some corrupt Huaxia people had contributed too much to these two cities. For the rich people in Huaxia, places like New York's Fifth Avenue were like a night market. For ordinary people, what was Fifth Avenue? Fifth Avenue was the scene of Audrey Hepburn in the movie. In the movie, Hepburn would come to the window of Tiffany's on Fifth Avenue every morning. She would eat the bread in her hand while looking through the glass window at the noble jewelry inside, fantasizing that one day she would be able to enjoy a relaxing breakfast in a noble jewelry store. In fact, many Americans had the mentality of the characters in the movie. The central axis of Manhattan gathered all the essence of Manhattan. It had almost all the top brand stores in the world. The products here were known for their complete range and speed of renewal. Even if it was the same brand, if it could not be found in other parts of the world, it could be bought here. How much money did New York make from the Huaxia people just because of this? The world's most famous jewelry, leather, clothing, and cosmetic stores were concentrated on Fifth Avenue. They were like sparkling diamonds, inlaid on both sides of Fifth Avenue, attracting thousands of Huaxia tourists. At the intersection of 5th Avenue and 47th Street, it should be the largest diamond and gold and silver jewelry street in the United States. It could be said that when the royal families of various countries, as well as the rich people of Huaxia, came to New York to shop, their first choice was 5th Avenue. However, the total amount of money spent by the royal families of other countries was probably not as much as the amount spent by the rich and powerful officials of China. This was the contribution of Huaxia people to the world-class metropolis of the United States. I promise that I will never let any of them appear in front of you again. Please forgive us, Mr. Carlos. The sheriff bowed again and again. He did not dare to offend such a rich person and left Los Angeles for New York. Only by keeping these rich people, Los Angeles's Beverly Hills Shopping Street, Hollywood Heights, and Melrose Avenue could these places compete with New York's 5th Avenue. Then get out of here. Lin Gu scolded again. Get out of here. Immediately. Yes, yes, yes. The sheriff waved his hand and all the Los Angeles police officers left. Looking at the police cars leaving, Lin Gu smiled at Su Yun. Brother, you don't say. The rich people of the United States have high status. They can get out of here with just one sentence. We can't judge what other people are thinking, but at least we are quite relaxed now. Su Yun, let's go home. I think that fat bodyguard is still contacting the gangs around here to find people. That fat guy is really dedicated. Lin Gu shook his head. In order to make money, no one will not be dedicated. Su Yun said to Lin Gu, that fat guy can be used. He probably knows more about the underworld of the United States Empire than we do. We eventually have to contact people in this circle. He is a useful person. Lin Gu nodded. He also knew that the fat guy was a useful person. What do legends call the fat guy? Meat Shield. Su Yun. Not just legends. It seems that everyone who knows him calls him that. Lin Gu made a gesture of understanding. As long as the fat guy was deceived, no one would recognize that he was not a legend. After all, this fat guy was his bodyguard. When you see the Meat Shield, you need to adjust your voice. Try to approach the legend's voice according to the method Zhou Xiu taught you. Su Yun. Anyway, Huaxia people have the unique feeling of Huaxia people when they speak English. You only need to imitate a little to deceive their ears. No problem. I promise to complete the task. Lin Gu let Su Yun rest assured. The two went on the road again and went straight to the villa in Beverly Hills. It was estimated that as long as they got there, the Meat Shield would definitely know immediately. It was impossible for him not to arrange for someone to watch over there. Even if it had been 10 days, what should be watched still needed to be watched. Chapter 3879. When the car drove into the villa area, Su Yun saw two shifty-eyed people squatting on the ground smoking marijuana. He got up and rushed out. It wasn't hard to guess that these two guys were spies left behind. The Meat Shields would probably be here soon. Su Yun and Lin Gu arrived at Legend's house. They parked the car and went inside with ease. They opened a bottle of XO and lit a cigar. This was the only atmosphere that other people thought Mr. Carlos was back. Good wine paired with cigars. Lin Gu couldn't help but complain that this bastard legend's daily life was too extravagant. Good XO really tasted special. It had to be known that only brandy aged for more than 50 years was worthy of the name XO. Even the glass of brandy wasn't ordinary. It looked very classy. Lin Gu actually didn't understand. Bro, why do we have to use a brandy glass to drink XO? Aren't red wine glasses and whiskey glasses the same? Because when drinking brandy, you have to hold the brandy glass with your hand and let the temperature of your palm pass through the glass to warm the wine a little and let the fragrance evaporate. Su Yun. Fill the glass and drink while smelling it. Only then can you truly enjoy the mystery of drinking brandy. After that, Su Yun handed a glass of ice water to Lin Gu. What's this? Lin Gu said. This isn't much to drink, so there's no need to drink water. Every time you drink a sip of brandy, drink a sip of ice water. The refreshing taste will make the next sip more fragrant. When you take a breath, the fragrance of the brandy will stay in your mouth for a long time. Su-yun, you think I'm telling you to drink water to rinse your mouth? There are rules for drinking brandy. Lin Gu smiled bitterly. These are the rules of the rich, aren't they? It's fine if we're drinking ordinary alcohol, but the XO here is indeed top-notch. Since we've already drunk it, let's have a good taste. Otherwise, it would be a pity to waste it. Su-yun, there's nothing wrong with having more rules. Lin Gu thought about it and realized that it was true. If he didn't pay attention to it now, he wouldn't have the chance to do so in the future. Jochen Xiu's disguise is really too similar. You're drinking wine and smoking cigars in front of me like a legend. I kind of want to beat you up. Su-yun said, I'm starting to wonder if a legendary battle pet warrior is really following me. I'm not sure if I'm mistaken. Lin Gu laughed and said, when I look in the mirror, I feel like hitting myself. Then you should look at yourself less in the mirror. What if one day you really punch your hand? Su-yun took a sip of wine, savoring the fragrance in his mouth. I feel that my life is a bit unreal now. Lin Gu said, it's a bit too cool to drink and chat. While the two were tasting wine and enjoying cigars, several beams of car lights shone in from outside the window. Su-yun sat up on the sofa. The time to enjoy is over. Remember the skills Jochen Xiu taught you to change your accent. You must pay attention to what you say when the meat shield is present. Okay. Lin Gu nodded. The door was not locked. The meat shield rushed into the house with a team of people. Everyone had a gun in their hand and aimed directly at Su-yun and Lin Gu. The moment the meat shield saw Lin Gu, his eyes widened instantly. He roared at his people, "Put down your guns. It would be troublesome if they were accidentally injured." The meat shield looked at the two people holding the wine glasses in surprise and asked vigilantly, "Mr. Carlos, what's the situation now?" "Okay, let your people go back. It's fine." Lin Gu waved his hand to the meat shield in a legend's English tone. "This is all thanks to Mr. Su. Otherwise, I would definitely be crippled." The meat shield looked at Su-yun. He was really puzzled. How did he suddenly become one of his people? "I'm talking to you. Let your people go back. I want to rest quietly now. I don't want to see so many people." Lin Gu continued, "You can stay by yourself." The boss had spoken. The meat shield naturally did not dare to disobey. He waved his hand to the people he brought and motioned for them to leave immediately. If he had something to do, he would call them again. "Come and have a drink." Lin Gu waved his hand to the meat shield. Because they had already asked the legend about the meat shield's daily habits, as soon as the meat shield sat down, Lin Gu passed him a cigar. He knew that the meat shield liked to smoke. The legend thought that if he cooperated well, he would be able to get 500,000 USD in venture capital. So, he told Su-yun and the others almost everything they wanted to know without holding back. The meat shield took the cigar and began to ask Lin Gu about what happened during this time. Lin Gu began to tell the meat shield according to the story they made up. The meat shield listened very carefully. Lin Gu told him that Su-yun had been looking for opportunities to help him. They finally found the opportunity to solve the problem in Seattle. Then, they talked about how dangerous and troublesome it was. In the end, they dealt with Lin Gu and escaped. Hearing this, the meat shield looked at Su-yun in shock. He really did not understand why Su-yun would suddenly betray them. Su-yun could see the doubt in the meat shield's eyes. He smiled and said to the meat shield, "Brother, you work so hard to earn money, and so do I. If I had the opportunity to do something for a sum of money that you might not be able to earn in 10 years, do you think I would do it?" Only then did the tank realize that it was not strange for him to do anything for money. He did everything for the legend of Mir for money, and he would not be afraid of any danger for money. Perhaps this was the charm of money. Money could always drive people crazy and make people do unimaginable things and actions. "I understand why you do this." The meat shield nodded. "You're a smart person, and I'm the same as you. If I were you, I'd make the same choice as you. If I were you, I'd make the same choice as you." If I were you, I'd make the same choice as you. A wise man submits to circumstances, Su Yun explained. The meat shield clapped his hands and nodded vigorously in agreement. Yes, that is what it means. A wise man submits to circumstances. You are a wise man, just like me. We are all wise men. The one who lost his life for this is the idiot. Yes, you are quite right. Lin Gu looked at the meat shield. This is all thanks to Mr. Su's help, so Mr. Su is my benefactor. From today onwards, you have to listen to whatever he says. Do you understand what I mean, meat shield? The meat shield nodded. Of course he understood. I understand. As long as you understand. Lin Gu said. Through this matter, I can see your loyalty to me, so I have decided to double your salary next year. The meat shield was overjoyed when he heard this. When people knew that their efforts were rewarded, they would feel very happy. As long as you work hard for me, I will not let your efforts go to waste. Lin Gu told the meat shield. I believe that you will be able to do even more things for me in the future, so I am willing to give you this amount of money. Thank you, boss, for your trust in me. The meat shield nodded. As long as I have the ability to work for boss, I will continue to work for boss. It is good to hear your words. Lin Gu said. I knew I didn't trust the wrong person. From now on, you two will be my left and right arms. You have to help me solve any problems. I need you, do you understand? The meat shield said with an expression of honor. Of course I understand, boss. I will not betray your trust in me. I promise that I will complete every task you give me. Good. Lin Gu patted the meat shield's shoulder. Come, let the three of us drink a toast to my survival this time. Cheers. The meat shield drank the wine in one gulp. Speaking of this matter, he was still a little ashamed. Because of him, the whole thing didn't go smoothly. Fortunately, Mr. Su was here this time. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have been able to reverse the situation. Mr. Su, I thank you. Thank you for helping my boss. Let me pour you a glass of wine. Then let us drink together. From now on, we will be brothers. If there is anything, we will face it together. Su Yun said. Come, let us drink together. After a few glasses of wine, the two of them had completely won the meat shield's trust. Chapter 3880. The meat shield was completely relaxed. To him, as long as his boss, Carlos, was back, everything else didn't matter. After a few drinks, the meat shield felt like he was floating. He wasn't as good at drinking as the meat shield, but his boss was too friendly today, and he was happy. There were more than 10 people he brought with him outside, and they were all fully armed brothers. Without any worries, the meat shield dared to drink as much as he wanted. After drinking to a certain extent, the meat shield even took the initiative to talk about what happened in the past 2 days. When the police put them on the wanted list, the meat shield vented his anger on Board's men. On the first day of Board's investigation at the police station, the meat shield went to teach him a lesson. This group of Latin American gangsters really disappointed him. The tank had trusted Board so much, but Board had betrayed his trust. Board had asked for an exorbitant price, changed his mind, and didn't even care about his life. The tank had seen all of this, and he couldn't accept it. In addition, the legend being kidnapped was a huge blow to the meat shield. If something really happened, not only would the meat shield lose his job, but his career would also be stained. All the rich people would know about this. Who would dare to hire him when the boss he was protecting was kidnapped right in front of him? Therefore, this was a huge blow to the meat shield. The meat shield vented all of his anger on Board. He gathered people and almost wiped out all the Latin American gangsters in Los Angeles. Although it was impossible to wipe them out completely, after the meat shield's actions, the Latin American gangsters in Los Angeles were greatly damaged. At least, it would be difficult for them to recover in the next few years. It would take at least 5 to 8 years for them to rise again. The meat shield told all of this to Su Yun and Lin Gu. He felt that he was standing up for his boss and that Mr. Carlos would be happy to hear it. Lin Gu clapped his hands, satisfied with the meat shield. Well done. As for that bastard, you should teach him a lesson and let him know what's good for him. Since he dared to play tricks in front of me, I'll kill him." Su Yun asked, "Board's Latin American gangsters are quite powerful in Los Angeles, and they have a lot of underlings. It's not easy for you to go against them, right? How did you do it?" "Mr. Su, you don't understand. Although I'm not a gangster, I'm familiar with most of the gangs." The Meat Shield said, "Also, I've always paid attention to maintaining my relationship with the gangs, so at least 2/3 of the gangs in Los Angeles are willing to give me some face." Su Yun nodded. "I understand now." The Meat Shield smiled. "It's because many bosses are willing to help me. That way, I can easily teach Board a lesson and send him back to his hometown." "Brother, your interpersonal relationships are really quite extensive." Su Yun gave him a thumbs up and praised. The tank shook his head with a smile. "No, no, no. You're still far from it. I believe that with your connections, you don't just have connections with the gangs in Los Angeles, right? For someone of your profession to follow Boss Carlos around, you must have a considerable network of connections throughout the United States." Su Yun smiled. The tank didn't intend to be humble anymore and nodded seriously. This network of connections was the basis for him to ask for a salary from his boss. "In our line of work in the United States, we do need a certain amount of capital. Making money isn't easy." Su Yun smiled. "This kind of national network is quite complicated, isn't it? It's okay. After all, I'm not a newbie in this line of work for 1 or 2 years." The tank said, "Actually, for me, it's not difficult in all aspects." Su Yun nodded. "Then Mr. Baldwin's network of connections must be very extensive." When the tank heard the name, he immediately sobered up. He glanced at Lin Gu. Seeing that there was no reaction, he replied to Su Yun, "Mr. Baldwin is... how do I put it? Hua Xia has an idiom called covering the sky with one's hand." "It was the idiom that my boss taught me." "Covering the sky with one's hand," Lin Gu said. Yes. Covering the sky with one's hand," the tank immediately said. As for Todd Baldwin, he was definitely a super big shot in the American Empire. He was involved in many aspects, and the entire upper class of the American Empire would give him some face. This was especially true for the entire underworld of the American Empire, who respectfully addressed Todd Baldwin as Mr. Baldwin. Although the Meat Shield was also someone with a strong network of connections, he could not be compared to Todd Baldwin at all. As for the capital that had drifted from Huaxia to the United States, the vast majority of them had been cleansed by Todd Baldwin once again to be completely clean. Although Todd Baldwin was not an American, he was able to establish his own super empire in the United States in New York. He was not a simple person. After all, this guy was the founder of the famous Baldwin Empire Group. Nowadays, there was no one in the United States who did not know the strength of the Baldwin Empire Group. The Baldwin Empire Group was still standing even when the drug problem was severely cracked down on time and time again. This was Todd Baldwin's ability. Todd Baldwin controlled the 4 major drug cartels. He had people in every corner of the United States where drugs were rampant. Todd Baldwin's underlings had joined forces with over 300 drug lords, big and small. These 300 drug lords had 30,000 to 50,000 professional drug dealers under them. They were active in South America, North America, Europe, Australia, and even Asia to fight for business in the Golden Triangle. The Baldwin Empire's organization was huge and the scope of its activities was wide. It was one of the top criminal organizations in the world. Now, the Baldwin Empire Group had started large-scale money laundering with the support of the drug industry. Many people in the world who had dirty money in their hands had come looking for them. Everyone knew that there was no risk in looking for Mr. Todd Baldwin to launder money. Of course, not just anyone could look for him to launder money. If one did not have a certain amount of capital, Todd Baldwin would definitely not bother with them. For example, Todd Baldwin did not care about dirty money in the millions or tens of millions of US dollars. If one wanted to look for Todd Baldwin to launder money, they would have to fork out at least 100 million US dollars. Otherwise, he would be too lazy to play with them. This was a symbol of strength. The money passed down through the family was all laundered through Todd Baldwin. In the United States, it could be spent without restraint. There was absolutely no way for anyone to find out that the money was dirty money. It was also impossible to trace the source of the money. Because of this, more and more people wanted to look for Todd Baldwin to cooperate. However, Todd Baldwin's starting point was too high. Many people simply did not have the strength to look for him to cooperate. Thus, another intermediary market was formed. Some people were in charge of contacting rich people who wanted to launder money. However, these rich people did not have that much money. Some might have $10 million, some might have $30 million, and some might even have $5 million. The job of the intermediary was to pool the money of these people and then gather $100 million. In this way, the money could be laundered through the Baldwin Group. Therefore, Todd Baldwin was definitely a rare genius in the criminal world. He could definitely be called a super leader among the world's criminals. The Meat Shield knew very well that he could not be compared to Todd Baldwin at all. At best, he had some contact with the intermediary in the money laundering market derived from the Baldwin crime group. This could be regarded as a part-time job for the Meat Shield. After all, there were many people in his circle with dirty money in their hands. As for Mr. Carlos, it was different. The Meat Shield did not need to be an intermediary for him because the money passed down through the family was enough for him to meet Todd Baldwin alone. The family was also a super big client for Todd Baldwin. Chuan Shan first contacted Todd Baldwin many years ago. Over the years, the money passed down through the family through Todd Baldwin's laundering was uncountable. Chapter 3881. My father is dead. There are a lot of things that need to be done. I need to meet with Mr. Baldwin and discuss how we can work together in the future. Lin Gu glanced at the Meat Shield. I have never contacted Mr. Baldwin directly before. Now, I need to contact him. You have to help me with this. The Meat Shield was stunned for a moment. He knew nothing about how Carlos and his family's money had been laundered through Todd Baldwin. But now, his boss needed him to contact him. The Meat Shield had some connections in this area. He had to step up and help. Boss, tell me what you need me to do. As long as it's something that you need me to do, and it's something that I can do, I'll definitely do my best to help you, the Meat Shield said. I promise that I won't disappoint you. Lin Gu nodded. Following their previous plan, he said to the Meat Shield, you know that it's not safe for me to continue living in Los Angeles. I need to leave Los Angeles for a change of environment. I won't come back here again. The Meat Shield was stunned. You won't come back here again? That's right. I need to clear out all the assets in Los Angeles as soon as possible and move them to New York, Lin Gu said. Away from the West Coast and to the East. This needs to be considered. Boss, you don't want anything? The Meat Shield frowned. Don't worry. You have been with me for so many years. As long as you are willing to follow me, I will give you the commission I promised you. Lin Gu said, I can buy you a house in New York. It will definitely be better than your house in Los Angeles. Hearing this, the Meat Shield couldn't help but smile. Boss, thank you for your trust in me. I need you to help me find someone to solve my current problem. Lin Gu said, my father is dead. So, I need you to arrange for a lawyer to go to Hua Xia to solve the issue of my father's death certificate. Then, everything he had in the United States will be under my name. That way, I can think of a way to deal with his assets. The Meat Shield nodded. Lin Ji's words made sense. A very good lawyer was needed to solve this problem. Fortunately, the United States never lacked good lawyers who were willing to solve problems. As long as the price was high enough, none of this was a problem. What were the lawyers of the American Empire like in reality? Of course, for the sake of benefits, they would not care about black and white, take advantage of legal loopholes, fight to the death, and do everything. Some criminal lawyers, in particular, were truly like lone wolves. They hunted ferociously in the human jungle and dealt with all kinds of people, including scoundrels. To put it bluntly, lawyers in the American Empire were absolutely mercenary. Sometimes, they would even distort the truth. Many people in the American Empire hated lawyers because they made a lot of money and liked to twist the truth. However, no one could deny that the U.S. Empire was a country of lawyers. Therefore, as long as there was enough money, there was nothing that a lawyer couldn't solve. Lin Gu only needed to find a good lawyer for him, and he could promote the inheritance of all the assets under Chuanshan's name to the Legend of Legends as soon as possible. When the time came, there would be no need to ask how many assets the family had in the United States. The lawyer would naturally give them a form. Then, they could find an intermediary broker to liquidate all the fixed assets in a short period of time, including all kinds of fixed assets, all kinds of certificates, stocks, and so on. Everything would be turned into cash. That way, it would be easier for them to transfer their assets back to Huaxia. I know a few very good lawyers. I believe they will be able to resolve this matter quickly. I will contact them for you immediately. As the meat shield spoke, he took out his phone and began to contact the lawyers he was familiar with. In fact, lawyers in the American Empire were like madmen when it came to making money. They would use the shortest amount of time to resolve a matter and get the money that belonged to them as soon as possible. Very good. I also need an experienced broker to help me manage all the assets here. I will need you to find this for me as well. Lin Gu continued to speak to the meat shield. The meat shield immediately hung up. He decided to wait for Lin Gu to tell him all the people he needed before he could contact them together. Everything needs to be liquidated. Lin Gu said, although this money isn't illegal, I still need to go to Todd Baldwin to filter it. I need all my assets here to disappear from the world and appear in New York. Everything will be brand new, and no one will be able to trace it. The meat shield looked at Lin Gu in surprise. Boss, this will cost a lot of money. It's really not worth it. It doesn't matter if it's worth it or not, Lin Gu said. As long as I can gather all my money and take it away, it doesn't matter if I spend a little. Of course, Su Yun and Lin Gu wouldn't take so much money and move it around the American Empire for fun. They also wouldn't let Baldwin earn such a large sum of money for nothing. He was just saying that. With that said, the meat shield felt reassured. He needed to be reassured before he could contact Todd Baldwin. Only then would the meat shield have the confidence to contact Todd. After all, it was a transfer of a large sum of money. It was a very simple matter. All he had to do was transfer the money to the Baldwin Group. Making money and assets evaporate was Todd Baldwin's specialty. Is it really all of it? All the properties in Los Angeles? All the investments? All the certificates? The meat shield's face was full of surprise. This was a huge sum of money. He didn't even dare to think about it. It was as high as billions of US dollars. That's right. Lin Gu said, if you need my authorization, just let the people you arranged come to me. I don't want to waste my time. This problem must be solved as soon as possible. No problem, boss. I will help you solve it as soon as possible. The meat shield nodded. I promise you that I will give you the fastest and most perfect service. I believe you. In the future, you won't just be my personal bodyguard. You will also be my assistant. I will give you double your salary. Lin Gu smiled at the meat shield. Work hard for me, and I promise I won't owe you anything. The meat shield nodded vigorously. What he wanted was this promise and guarantee. This was the greatest motivation for him to work for Mr. Carlos. As for Todd Baldwin, I will help you get in touch with him as soon as possible. The meat shield said, however, Mr. Baldwin isn't someone who can be moved with just a few calls. So, I need to go to New York personally. If Mr. Baldwin isn't in New York, I can only go to Colombia to find him. Lin Gu frowned. If we are to meet, it would be best to arrange for him to meet in New York. I don't want to go to Colombia. The meat shield nodded. Of course, he understood. He didn't want to go there either. Colombia was too chaotic. Because of the Baldwin crime syndicate, the place was a complete mess. It was a huge drug den. Especially the place where the Baldwin crime syndicate was located. It was really a murderous city. A big city in Colombia, located at the western foot of the Cordillera Mountains, was actually a very suitable place for human habitation. The average temperature was around 20 degrees, the climate was pleasant, and orchids were abundant. However, such a good place was occupied by the huge Baldwin crime syndicate. It was definitely a world-class drug distribution center. The rampant terrorist activities turned this city, which was supposed to be full of charm, into a terrifying hell. It could be said that over the years, there had been an endless stream of violent incidents. It was no exaggeration to say that blood had been spilled all over the streets and alleys of this city. Who knew how many murders and bloodshed there would be every year? Every year, hundreds or even thousands of people would die. What was more terrifying was that 80% of the murderers were still at large. The Baldwin crime syndicate carried out countless attacks every year. If it wasn't 1,000, it was at least 800. Over the years, at least tens of thousands of people had died in violent incidents in this country. The leaders of the drug control units in various countries all said that they were the most vicious, most dangerous, most brutal, most daring, and also the richest criminal organization in the history of the world. It was said that compared to this organization, the gangs in the United States were like elementary school students, and the gangs in Japan were like the choir in a church. The actions of these people from the Baldwin crime syndicate were the ones that truly endangered the health and safety of people all over the world. Chapter 3882. The core members of Baldwin's underlings were the 5 major drug lords known as the 5 Satans: Poison King, Poison Saint, Poison God, Poison Tyrant, Poison Immortal. Anyway, they were all incredible people. Those who could be called Satans by Westerners must be notorious people. Westerners said that Satan was a fallen archangel. Originally, it was an archangel and had a certain amount of authority. However, it was arrogant and thought that it could surpass the authority of Jehovah. It betrayed Jehovah God and became the demon Satan. In any case, in the eyes of Westerners, Satan was the supreme demon. These 5 demons in the eyes of Westerners were Baldwin's underlings. It was conceivable that Baldwin was a person who was proficient in human nature. This guy definitely knew how to play with people's hearts. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to train these demons so skillfully. There were reasons why the city where Baldwin's crime syndicate was located became the cocaine capital. First, the city was located in the northwest of Colombia. Air transportation was very, very convenient, especially conducive to the transportation of everything. Second, the city was surrounded by rolling mountains, which provided excellent cover for Baldwin's underground cocaine factory. People who were not familiar with the place dared not come. Third, the city was traditionally an industrial city, so it was easy to obtain the chemicals needed to refine cocaine. It should be noted that this was the largest coffee market and leather textile industry center in Colombia. It was a fairly modern industrial city. The last reason was that the textile industry, which used to be the economic lifeline of the entire city, suffered a downturn, causing tens of thousands of young people to live on the streets. Many of them were recruited by Baldwin's crime syndicate at that time and became drug trafficking professionals or thugs for the big drug lords. Baldwin's crime syndicate was initially formed more than 20 years ago. They had replaced a drug empire that had once been more glorious. In the comprehensive drug war across America, the Army, Navy, and Air Force and the police force took joint action to suppress drugs nationwide. In just a few months, dozens of drug processing plants were destroyed. Aircraft, ships, and a large number of weapons and ammunition were seized. Countless drugs and drug traffickers' illegal assets were confiscated. A group of important drug traffickers was arrested, and some of them were extradited to the United States for trial. It was during the relaxation period after the crackdown that Baldwin picked up the guns that his seniors had thrown away. In the beginning, Baldwin had learned from his predecessors and engaged in the smuggling of gems. After he had accumulated a certain amount of experience, he began to smuggle marijuana or other drugs. After all, the United States was a huge drug market. There were many drug addicts in the United States. As a result, their demand for drugs increased greatly. This was the driving force behind Baldwin Syndicate's expansion into smuggling large quantities of drugs. To be honest, drugs in the American empire were a little too common. Marijuana, for instance, could be found everywhere in the United States. Sometimes, the smell of marijuana could be smelled in the public restroom of a restaurant. Maybe the person squatting next to it was secretly enjoying it. Even the school had been invaded by marijuana. There were quite a lot of students, both male and female, who would secretly roll some marijuana on the playground during the break. This ratio was even higher than the number of students who secretly hid in the toilet to smoke in Huaxia High School. According to official statistics, 5% of the American population consumed more than 50% of the world's drugs. Every year, more than 500,000 people died from drugs in the United States. How many people were there in the United States? The average drug use in the United States was more than 200 times that of Huaxia. This problem in Huaxia was already very serious. Some KTV and such places would have drug addicts. In addition, there were more and more drug driving accidents in recent years. Think about it, everything in the United States was more than 200 times that of Huaxia. This was a terrifying number. The United States could be said to be immune to all kinds of drugs. They were practically drug addicts. They were like workers who extracted snake venom all year round. The poison in their bodies was very high. Even if they were bitten by a poisonous snake, they would be fine. The guys in the American Empire didn't seem to care if they smoked a little marijuana or something. Baldwin valued this point. He knew that as long as he relied on the United States market, his business would always be the one that made the most money. Many people in the United States would never give up on drugs. It seemed to be a part of their lives. Therefore, Baldwin first bought raw materials from other drug-producing countries in South America, such as Bolivia or Peru, to process and sell them. Slowly, his courage grew. He felt that the control units had relaxed. The Baldwin Group simply went into action. They started to grow coca, marijuana, opium poppy. Slowly, all of this formed a monopoly production system of planting, processing, and selling. It also formed a self-contained drug trafficking network. As long as he took over the United States, Baldwin would forever live in the United States. Soon, the Baldwin Group used various methods to obtain their own territory. The central area they controlled was the Leticia region bordering Brazil. This place was really too good. There were no signs of human habitation within a radius of a few hundred kilometers. It was a piece of land that had been completely forgotten by the world. The amount of land that could be used to grow raw materials for drugs here was already as high as hundreds of thousands of hectares. Baldwin quickly set up over 100 drug processing plants here. Furthermore, this number was increasing almost every week, and the number was constantly increasing. This place became the main drug production base of Baldwin's criminal organization. He relied on his armed forces to completely protect his base. The passages between the base and the outside world were all cut off by Baldwin's subordinates. Numerous obstacles were set up at key points and roadsides. He even set up many anti-aircraft machine guns and flip-flop cannons. The number of mercenaries stationed here was innumerable. No one could give a specific number. Furthermore, the area controlled by Baldwin's syndicate had 4 large airports. Various types of aircraft were parked at the airports. Even the syndicate's own people could only enter and leave the base by plane. The roads below were completely sealed off. This definitely gave people the feeling of a country within a country. It was strange that the American continent was so sparsely populated that there were so many empty places. The mercenaries that Baldwin arranged to guard the base were very advanced. The weapons and equipment of the mercenaries were far more advanced than the national army of the Colombian country. All of them were the most advanced weapons imported from the United States. The Baldwin Group controlled most of the drug production sources in the entire South American region. At present, 1/3 of the cocaine and marijuana in the entire Western country's drug market came from the Colombian country. Most of these were Baldwin's. The drugs processed by the Baldwin Group were mainly sold to the United States, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, Boston, and of course, Baldwin's favorite, New York. Most of the 1 million Colombians living in the United States were involved in drug smuggling. Every year, they smuggled countless drugs into the United States, worth more than a few billion USD. In order to ensure absolute safety, Baldwin had also purchased a lot of advanced motorboats and light aircraft, all of which were used to transport drugs. They could transport drugs into the United States from the waters near Florida, making it impossible for the United States Coast Guard to guard against them. In the United States, there was a movie called Miami. The people in the movie used the identity of a boat racer and smuggler to infiltrate a huge drug network. In fact, the movie was based on this story. The Baldwin Group would unscrupulously pour drugs into the cities on the south coast of the United States. In any case, this place was very difficult to control. The United States government also had a headache. However, the coastline was so long that the country's police force could not protect the entire coastline. It was because of this that the Baldwin Group achieved its current glory. Even Todd Baldwin himself said that it was the United States that made him what he was today. If there were no drug addicts in the United States, he would be nothing. Unfortunately, the United States had gathered the most drug addicts in the world. Chapter 3883. In addition, Baldwin's criminal syndicate had also opened up land smuggling routes, transporting products into the United States from the long border between the United States and Japan. This was actually the same as how the people from the Golden Triangle transported goods into Huaxia through the long southern border of Huaxia. Of course, the United States was no fool. They quickly tightened their control of their borders and coastlines, but they were still unable to stop Baldwin's well-established drug transportation routes. In addition, Baldwin's criminal syndicate had also opened up a route to Asia. Su Yun had obviously experienced this before. The new American drugs that entered Huaxia through water wheels were almost all from Baldwin's syndicate. In addition, Baldwin also used Japan as a transit point. As the United States' control of their borders and coastlines became more and more ruthless, Baldwin's gaze fell on Japan. After all, everyone knew that Japan was the most barking dog of the United States. Baldwin's criminal syndicate loaded the drugs onto cargo ships or flights bound for Japan. They first transported to Japan, then from Japan to the United States via sea or air. Although this was more troublesome, it could reduce a lot of risks. The Japanese were unaware of this. It could only be said that Baldwin's brain worked too fast. He could do many things that caught people off guard. There were policies at the top and countermeasures at the bottom. No matter how the United States messed with him, he could always think of new ways to solve problems and troubles. Next was Baldwin's most astute part. His criminal syndicate actually invested most of the huge amount of money they earned from selling drugs into legal businesses. In the end, he actually used this method to legalize his illegal profits. According to the estimates of the investigators who had been keeping an eye on the Baldwin Group, the legal assets of the large-scale criminal syndicate led by Baldwin were in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Baldwin had hundreds of legal companies under him, including banks, construction companies, real estate companies, radio stations, car companies, large shopping malls, and so on. It was impossible to count how much legal assets he had. Indeed, Baldwin's crime syndicate had formed an independent kingdom. Over the years, the Baldwin Group's power had increased. Therefore, their illegal activities in social life had become more brazen and unrestrained. This was also the reason why they had attracted so many people who came looking for them to launder money. No one could say for sure how much wealth Baldwin had earned from the money empire built by the criminal syndicate. There were even rumors that Baldwin's personal wealth was many times richer than his own country, Colombia. Baldwin had once made a request to the Colombian nation. He said that as long as the nation recognized his assets as legitimate wealth and released a few of his trusted aides, he could repay the nation's foreign debt of tens of billions of dollars. This was something that he could easily do. As long as the country nodded and agreed to his request, no matter how much money he had, he would not be a problem. From this, it could be seen that Baldwin's profits from drugs were uncountable. Not long ago, Baldwin's Poison King fled to other countries because he was wanted. Baldwin made a request to the Colombian Empire to allow them to return to the Colombian Empire in the near future. In exchange, the drug king would no longer be involved in the drug business. Furthermore, they would not participate in political activities. In addition, they would withdraw funds from the United States to help the country survive the financial crisis. From this point, it could be seen that Baldwin was rich and overbearing. The other most important point was that he could make the drug king no longer participate in the drug business. This showed that they no longer needed to rely on drugs to make money. Now, even if he did not let the drug Columbia's right-hand man do the drug business, he would not lose anything. Baldwin could still arrange for the drug Columbia to do other business. In any case, the entire Baldwin group now had countless businesses, and all of these businesses could make money. The drug lords under the Baldwin group made huge profits, and their annual cash flow was tens of billions of dollars. In order to hide this money, they used fake names to store large amounts of cash in banks in small countries like Panama and the Bahamas. Later, for some unknown reason, the Colombian Judicial Department stopped executing the agreement with the United States regarding the extradition of drug traffickers to the United States. This made everyone under the Baldwin group even more unscrupulous and unscrupulous. They began to transfer cash from those small countries back to the country. In a short period of time, tens of billions of dollars flowed back to the Colombian country. All the drug lords who worked for Baldwin in the Colombian country were especially fond of squandering. They all lived extremely luxurious lives. All kinds of luxury cars, private jets, world-famous horses, they could afford to play with anything. There were also all kinds of large manors and villas. They all liked to use this way to show off their wealth. Baldwin was very supportive of his people doing this. This was all based on his experience. Spending money was not the main point. The main point was to gain status, face, and what one wanted. Wealth was the most basic thing. Only with wealth could one gain a place in traditional social activities. In the city where Baldwin started, it was drugs that brought huge profits to the city. Because the people who came were all drug lords who liked to squander money, the hotels and entertainment venues there were very luxurious. Indoor swimming pools, tennis courts, bullfighting arenas, and other facilities were standard in any hotel. The city was also full of high-class residential areas. Baldwin's construction company had returned to the place where he started not too long ago and built a rather luxurious apartment building. The cost of each apartment was as high as millions of dollars. Every apartment had a swimming pool on its balcony. But anyone who was involved in the drug business, or anyone who worked for Baldwin, could afford to buy one. What they had was money. Baldwin's current philosophy in life was that money was paramount. As long as there was money, everything was okay. As long as there was money, anything could be done. As long as there was money, no problem was a problem. There was no problem in this world that money could not solve. That was Baldwin's life motto. Therefore, he was a person who only cared about money and not people. As long as it was something beneficial, he would definitely do it. Of course, the profit he was talking about was not small profit. The profit he was talking about was big profit. Baldwin had never encountered a problem that could not be solved with money. In the past, someone had hired an assassin to get rid of him. The assassin's gun was pointed at his head. However, Baldwin had used one sentence to solve his problem. He told the assassin that no matter who wanted to kill him, he would be willing to pay double the price. Thus, the assassin had become his personal bodyguard. In addition to the assassin, there were many people around him who had become his subordinates because of this situation. Baldwin had said that US dollars could kill someone. He had said that not just once, but many times. Facts proved that his words were right. If one stack of US dollars could not kill someone, then use 2 stacks. If 2 stacks were not enough, then use 10 stacks. If 10 stacks were not enough, then use 100 stacks. If 100 stacks were not enough, then use 2,000 stacks. Sooner or later, there would be a number that would work. Todd Baldwin had used his own means to create his own empire, his own world, and everything that belonged to him. This guy would become a huge nightmare for Su Yun and Lin Guo in the United States. It was a big problem that was quite difficult to solve and deal with. Baldwin was also about to face the most difficult opponent in his life because he would see a person who could not be solved with money and face a problem that could not be solved with money. When Baldwin's money trump card lost its final lethality, how long could he last? At that time, Baldwin was afraid that any struggle would be meaningless. At that time, he might understand a new truth, but it was still unknown who would win. Chapter 3884. Although Su Yun, Lin Gu, and everything else seemed to be calm, in reality, it was just the calm before the storm. The storm would hit very soon. No one knew this better than Su Yun and Lin Gu. Su Yun and Lin Gu came to New York in advance because they were worried that Lin Gu would be exposed in front of the meat shield for too long and make the meat shield suspicious. If they were separated further, the meat shield wouldn't have the time to question them. He put all his energy into doing what Lin Gu asked him to do. This way, he could give Su Yun and Lin Gu the most comprehensive answer as soon as possible. It had to be said that some people in the American Empire were quite efficient in doing things for the sake of American dollars. When Su Yun and Lin Gu got off the plane and turned on their phones after arriving in New York, the meat shield had already sent them a message. The lawyer had already solved the inheritance problem of Carlos, and needed Lin Ge's signature and fingerprint on a document. Su Yun and Lin Gu decided to find a hotel to stay in first. Then, they told the meat shield the address of the hotel and let the meat shield send over the document that needed their cooperation. After Lin Gu processed it, they would send it back. After all, they weren't afraid of fingerprint identification now. They walked out of the airport and called a private car to go straight to the high-end hotel. Looking at New York's night scenery along the way, it was really magical. New York was very beautiful, especially that magical beauty that could only be hidden in the night. Some people said that New York after nightfall was magical and seductive, enchanting and blurred. These were often unfathomable but also fascinating. Under the night sky, New York's buildings were covered in a black and gold color. When Su Yun and Lin Gu left the airport in the car, the city's nightlife began to descend. For Su Yun and Lin Gu, this was definitely the best time to experience New York. Whether it was the lighting, the architecture, or the combination of the moon and the unique charm of the city, this was an extremely beautiful place that made people intoxicated. If it weren't for this incident, I probably wouldn't have spent my own money to stay in such a good hotel, Lin Gu said to Su Yun in the car. Just think of it as coming out to enjoy life. Su Yun smiled. In order to not arouse the suspicion of the meat shield and to successfully contact the head of the money laundering organization, Su Yun and the others had to pay a price. If they couldn't even bear to stay in a better hotel, Baldwin probably wouldn't even bother with them. 7 of the most expensive hotels in the United States were located in New York. Located only 1 street away from Central Park, the price of the luxury hotel was also quite high. Even the most common double room there was close to $1,000, and a suite was naturally even more expensive. The hotel that Su Yun and the others chose was originally invested in by Baldwin's criminal organization, so it increased the possibility of them coming into contact. The 2 of them chose a suite that cost $40,000 a night. Although it wasn't the most luxurious hotel in the world, it was a room that only people who were quite extravagant and wasteful would stay in. After all, there weren't many Americans who dared to throw away so much money in one night. Even in the United States, those who dared to be so extravagant were generally Huaxia people. The Americans weren't that rich, and those who were rich were quite stingy. Only the rich in Huaxia who didn't care about money could be extravagant to the extreme. Rumor had it that the family in the United States didn't care about money, so they had to choose a place that was luxurious enough to stay. Whether the place was worth it or not, the money had to be spent. After all, hotels that cost tens of thousands of RMB a night were everywhere in Huaxia. It was normal for the world's largest city, New York, to have a hotel that cost tens of thousands of US dollars a day. The people who stayed in this place didn't care about money. This was a suite on the top floor. To be honest, there weren't many people who could afford to stay in this suite with an unparalleled view. It was said that this suite was designed by a very famous designer. The entire suite went across the 52nd floor of the hotel. From the glass balconies on all sides, or from each room, it provided the room owner with an unparalleled 360-degree view of Manhattan's skyline. Perhaps this was the reason why this place was expensive. After all, there were too many Americans who had never seen a 360-degree view of Manhattan. Su Yun and Lin Gu were dumbfounded when they entered the room. There was a very special 4-foot chandelier in the room, and the walls were inlaid with mother-of-pearl and 22-karat gold fabric. There was a Zen garden inside and outside the room, and there was a waterfall that flowed from the ceiling to the floor. The entire master bathroom was decorated with huaxia agate, and the secondary bathroom was decorated with tiger's eye stones. There was also a spa room with top-notch fitness equipment, and even an indoor library decorated with bronze with a grand piano. What the F***ck? Lin Ji's jaw almost dropped. Anyone reading a book here must be a rich author. Lin Gu couldn't help but sit down and enjoy the new chapters of The Monster Soldier King on WeChat's official account. Su Yun couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. He really admired this place, so much so that he wanted to prostrate himself on all fours. This place is really not bad. Su Yun, you get what you pay for. It's the same everywhere in the world. There's no need to spend too much money. If you want to enjoy it, open your wallet wide. There's nothing that's cheap and good. If it's good, it won't be cheap. If it's cheap, it definitely won't be good. Brother, living here is burning money. Lin Gu also sighed. This is really too exaggerated. When I think about how there are many bastards like this family heirlooms, using the dirty money they earned in China to enjoy this kind of life outside, I feel angry. How many people in Huaxia didn't have enough to eat or sleep? These guys were so carefree outside. It was really infuriating. Then remember this anger. There will be a time when you can vent it out. Su Yun smiled slightly and said, "Don't forget, our purpose here is to solve this situation." Lin Gu looked at the luxurious furnishings in the room. This hotel belongs to Baldwin? It's said to be, but we don't know the specific situation. Su Yun nodded. You're not yourself now. Remember your identity. You're Carlos, a rich second-generation heir who only knows how to spend money and enjoy. Don't bring your current emotions to yourself. I understand. Lin Gu nodded. What I need to do now is to enjoy it, and then find fault with it. Very good. That's the state. Su Yun, when you can be such a bastard that even I want to beat you up, you'll be considered to have entered the state. Brother, don't test my acting skills. I definitely can't do it in front of you. Lin Gu said, but I promise, as long as it's time for me to do something, I won't let you down. You know me. Su Yun nodded. Of course I know you, so I'm not worried about you. When the time comes, you definitely won't let me down. I promise. Lin Gu said seriously. After the two of them settled down, they immediately informed the meat shield of the hotel's address and room number. The meat shield told the lawyer in charge of inheritance to send over the documents with their signatures and fingerprints. They would send them back as soon as possible. This way, they could be considered to have completed a big task, and they felt much more relaxed. On the other hand, the meat shield's contact with Baldwin was carried out step by step. After layers of filtering, the meat shield was qualified to contact Baldwin. After all, there were many people who wanted to cooperate with Baldwin or find him to solve their problems. Therefore, it was not that easy to get in touch with Baldwin. If Baldwin felt that the cooperation was worth his time, he would agree to meet. However, if Baldwin's time was delayed because the matter was too small, he would definitely make the person who delayed his time pay the price. Therefore, when the meat shield contacted Baldwin, he did not have much confidence. After the matter with the lawyer was settled, the meat shield felt more confident. This kind of confidence could not be given to him by others. He could only be sure if he had it or not. As long as the signature and fingerprints were on the documents, the matter was considered to be settled. The meat shield's confidence could be said to be very high. Everything was going according to plan. As long as there were not too many deviations, Su Yun was relieved. Solving the problem slowly like this was easy for anyone. Chapter 3885. 2 days later, Su Yun and Lin Gu finally got a perfect answer. All of Chuanshan's properties in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Houston, Boston, Atlanta, and Miami had a specific amount. All kinds of stocks and bonds were also sold. Although it would take some time to sell the houses, it was estimated that all of the heirloom assets would be sold for at least $5 billion. That was nearly 30 billion RMB. The dirty money that Chuan Shan, the old fox, had made through his own despicable means over the years was actually such a terrifying number. That was not including the money that their heirlooms squandered. Therefore, the losses that Chuan Shan had made Hua Xia's capital over the past decade were simply astronomical. When Lin Guo asked the Meat Shield to arrange for people to sell all of their assets as soon as possible, the Meat Shield was a little confused. Selling houses was an understandable thing. After all, selling houses could be regarded as a business that did not lose money and could still make some profit. After all, those who could afford to buy those heirlooms were not ordinary people. They were all super-rich people. However, things like cars would lose a lot of money if they sold them. After all, these cars could be transferred to New York and directly sent there by a consignment company. It would not cost much. However, Lin Guo insisted that the Meat Shield sell at the market price as soon as possible. Among all the heirloom's assets, Su Yun and Lin Guo were most surprised by Chuan Shan's villa and private jet in Miami. Even Legend didn't know that his father had a private jet in Miami. Chuan Shan must have deliberately hidden it from him. Chuan Shan knew his son very well. If Legend knew that his father had a private jet, he would definitely fly around the world for fun. Therefore, Legend only told Su Yun that his family had a house in Miami at that time, and did not say anything about the private jet. In the end, after weighing the pros and cons, Su Yun did not let Lin Guo sell the private jet. If necessary, we can apply for a flight route in advance. Under special circumstances, we can take it and leave directly. This was Su Yun's initial idea. Lin Guo also felt that it was necessary. I didn't think that the old fox Chuan Shan would leave us a way out. Lin Guo smiled. That's much more reliable. But, brother, from New York to Miami, one is on the East Coast, and the other is on the South Coast. I'm afraid we'll waste a lot of time on the way. It doesn't matter, Su Yun said. It's just an extra backup plan. It doesn't mean anything. Lin Guo thought about it and felt that it was meaningless, so he wasn't excited. Brother, we've been here for 2 days. It's really boring. Although the food in this hotel is delicious, I don't feel anything after eating a few meals. The expenses in the hotel are indeed extravagant. Su Yun thought for a moment. Then, let's go see if there are any food stalls in New York tonight. Lin Guo was happy when he heard this. Their expenses in the hotel in the past 2 days were enough to let the people in the hotel know that they were Hua Xia's nouveau riche. Su Yun didn't go out because he was worried that Lin Ji's legendary face would meet some acquaintances. It would be troublesome if there were any flaws that were noticed by someone. Then we'll go when it's dark. Lin Guo rubbed his hands. We're not going out to do anything. Why are you so excited? Let's watch TV first. After Su Yun finished speaking, he walked to the computer to check if there was a popular food street like Hua Xia in New York. Night market food stalls and street food streets were not exclusive to Hua Xia. Even New York, the world's largest city, had street food. Hua Xia's street food stalls were very popular, but they were becoming fewer and fewer in recent years. This was because the street food was delicious, convenient, cheap, and good. The customers of the street food stalls were not only low to moderate consumption groups, but also big-name celebrities. Everyone wanted to be open in the open, relaxed, and happy. Even in the United States of America and the world's largest metropolis, New York, there were similar street delicacies that were also popular. New York had always enjoyed delicious food from all over the world. After all, the city level was placed here. If New York didn't have a restaurant with 3 Michelin stars, then it couldn't be considered a capable chef. In addition to those super restaurants, more ordinary people could enjoy more street food. Su Yun and Lin Guo walked out of the hotel after dark. According to the information Su Yun found on the website, they began to look for a place. Soon after, they saw the street food stalls that were cheap and convenient. Although Su Yun and Lin Guo hadn't eaten this kind of street food stalls, many online foodies' comments on New York street food stalls were quite good. Perhaps the gutter oil industry in the United States was not developed, so even the street food stalls didn't have the disgusting taste that only food made with gutter oil would have. This was what satisfied foodies. On the streets of Manhattan, Arab food stalls selling chicken rice or lamb rice could be seen everywhere. Although there was meat, rice, and salad, and they looked similar, the taste was very different. Su Yun followed the recommendation of a netizen on the foodie website and took Lin Gu to the vicinity of the Museum of Modern Art to look for the Arab food stalls called the Hal Guys. The chicken rice and lamb rice here were known as the best food stalls in New York. "Brother, I see the food stalls, but there are too many people in line, right?" Lin Gu pointed not far away. "There are at least 20 people waiting." Su Yun signaled them to line up. Since there were so many people in line, it meant that the food stalls must have something special. After a long wait in line, Su Yun and Lin Gu finally got their chicken rice and lamb rice. To be honest, this was really the most delicious Arab street food Su Yun had ever eaten. No wonder the impatient New Yorkers were willing to wait patiently for a long time. It was said that these Arab street food had a history. Once upon a time, there was only one fast food on the streets of the United States, which was the favorite hot dog in the United States. But slowly, people felt that eating hot dogs was not interesting. Slowly, other foods were introduced. These food stalls were very popular at all times. The food stalls were wearing yellow t-shirts, yellow plates, and yellow flags. Even the plastic bags that contained the food boxes were yellow. Looking at the beautiful yellow color, there was a long line. The tempting smell of the meat mixed with the smell of the rice was really irresistible. It would be a pity if one came to the streets of New York and did not eat this Middle Eastern food stalls. Although $6 is not cheap, it is much cheaper than the food in the hotel. Lin Gu sighed after eating. If this lamb rice was placed in the hotel, it would be at least $120. Mixing white sauce and chili sauce to stir-fry meat and rice, one bite could arouse one's appetite. The more one ate, the more delicious it was. It was very satisfying. That was why Lin Gu sighed. When eating, the white sauce and chili sauce were poured on top of the rice. Then, the rice, meat, and sauce were mixed well. A big bowl of fragrant lamb rice was definitely enough to make anyone eat until they were full. Although this portion of rice was quite large, the fragrant and spicy taste was still not enough for a foodie. Endless aftertaste. Su Yun could not help but sigh. It really suits the taste of Hua Xia people. This will definitely be very popular in Hua Xia. It is still not as good as the food in Hua Xia. Lin Gu shook his head. This was true. There were too many delicacies in Hua Xia. Naturally, there was no way to compare them. However, it was different in front of the Americans who might eat fast food 3 times a day. To be honest, the ordinary people in the American Empire, who had an ordinary salary, really had not eaten anything good. Spicy crayfish, Yenjing roast duck, braised pork, Westlake vinegar fish, squirrel mandarin fish, sliced beef in chili sauce, boiled fish, steamed rice, steamed buns, earthen pot soup, chicken skewers, minced meat noodles, spicy soup. Even a simple bottle of Lao Gan Ma could beat many of the American Empire's food. There were indeed many Michelin-starred restaurants in New York, but not many people could afford to eat there. However, the food in Hua Xia was basically affordable for most people. There was no doubt about this. Hua Xia still won. Carlos, I didn't expect to see you here. Suddenly, someone behind Su Yun and Lin Gu shouted in fluent American English. Chapter 3886. At this time, Lin Gu was in a state of shock. He really did not think of Carlos' identity. After all, this situation had happened without warning. Su Yun's eyes reminded Lin Gu. Lin Gu calmed down and turned his head to smile at a strong white man with blonde hair and blue eyes behind him. How can you, Carlos, be interested in this kind of small street food truck? At first, I thought I was mistaken. So it really is you. The white man's expression was actually quite annoying. He was a little arrogant and domineering. Yes, I'm here for the chicken rice in this small food truck. Lin Gu quickly found his legendary state in front of the other party's aggressive expression. When the other party heard this tone, his expression was a little ugly. You're here for this chicken rice? That can't be, right? I keep feeling that you're down and out. I heard that your rich father in Huaxia went to see God? Oh, you can tell that I'm down and out? Lin Gu said, do you know, there's an old saying in Huaxia, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even if my old man dies, it won't affect me much. You heard that my father is dead, but have you heard that I've inherited everything from my father? The white man's expression became even uglier. So what if it's yours? Haven't you already started to sell all your properties, cars, and everything you can sell? How much debt do you owe? Who said I owe money? Lin Gu said, you're quite amazing. You know everything. You heard about me coming to New York, right? I thought this was a coincidence. So it was planned by you. Tell me, why are you looking for me? Carlos, don't play dumb. I've always remembered the grudge between the two of us, the white man said coldly. The white man said coldly, let me tell you, I've been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Your bodyguards are not by your side, and all your subordinates are not by your side. You've sold all your belongings and are now a pauper. What do you have to play with me? Today, I plan to humiliate you the same way you humiliated me back then. Lin Gu heard some clues from his words. He was definitely someone who had a grudge with him before. I'm sorry. You remember it clearly, but I really can't. Lin Gu put on an indifferent expression. There are many people who have grudges with me. Who do you think you are? The white man was so angry that the muscles on his face trembled. I dare you to say that again. To tell you the truth, I don't even remember your name. Do you think I can still remember what happened between us? Lin Gu said, what do you want? Just say it. Don't talk so much nonsense. In order to teach you a lesson, I've already thought of a way to come into contact with the tank. The white man said, it's impossible for the meat shield to come today. Do you really think I don't know why you sold all your assets? The meat shield went to Colombia. Now, as long as you die, the rest of your plan will never be realized. Yo, I'm dead. How capable do you think you are? Lin Gu said, you want to kill me? You don't have to go that far. How much hatred do you have for me? Killing your wife and stealing your child? Or did I step on your father? Back then, you stole my woman when you just came to school. You even spent money to get everyone on the football team to turn against me. I was seriously injured and had to be hospitalized. After that, I was no longer able to participate in high-intensity sports competitions. My dream of participating in the Super Bowl was shattered by you. The more the white man spoke, the angrier he became. Su Yun and Lin Gu more or less understood now. It must be because Legend was rich that he slept with the cheerleader's girlfriend in school. That was nothing. This guy was beaten up until his sports career was ruined. Otherwise, this guy wouldn't be so angry. I thought it was something big. So, it's just this? Lin Gu waved his hand indifferently. By the way, what's the girl's name? I can't remember. I've been playing too much in recent years. I really can't remember. The white man clenched his fist, ready to land on Lin Ji's face at any time. But Lin Gu still didn't have any restraint. Anyway, he was now Legend. He didn't need to care about his self-image. What they were playing with was their heartbeat, and what they were playing with was their arrogance. Carlos, let me tell you. This is New York, not your Los Angeles, the white man said coldly. In Los Angeles, no one dares to touch you because you're a meat shield. But not here. This is New York. I've been in New York longer than you, and I've been a meat shield longer. Su Yun and Lin Gu had already noticed the people around them. This white man didn't fight alone. Instead, he brought a dozen people with him. What made them feel strange was that this guy was obviously a white man, but he was mixed up with a group of black gangsters. Although you've been in the gang for a long time, you're obviously not doing well, Lin Gu said. The meat shield is doing much better than you. He's much better than you in many aspects. You're a white man. Isn't it too degrading to mix up with black gangsters? Lin Gu didn't mean to belittle black people. It was just that in today's American empire, black gangsters were all made up of people of African descent. To a certain extent, they weren't as high class as Italian, Russian, and other European gangs. The white gangs in the American empire had almost broken away from the concept of small thieves, but black gangs were still associated with small thieves. It wasn't just black gangs. Some gangs in Asian countries also took the route of small thieves in the American empire. They couldn't be compared to the real white gangs in the American empire. They couldn't compete at all. There was a difference in levels. When Lin Ge said that the other party mixed up with black gangs, it wasn't based on race, but on the level of the gangs. He was saying that the other party wasn't high class. Although there were many black gangs in the American empire who were at the top of the white gangs, the vast majority of black gangs weren't as good as some white gangs. There were also rules to being in a gang. You couldn't just show off on the street with a kitchen knife and tell others that you're a gang and do whatever you want. There were also two types of people in the social circle. One was those who understood the game, and the other was those who didn't. For example, people like Todd Baldwin were those who understood the game. They could figure out everything and play things clearly. No one was as smart as him, so he could play things clearer than anyone else. What was clear? What was understanding? Obviously, the guy in front of Su Yun and Lin Ge didn't understand the game. He couldn't figure out the difference between gangs. He mixed up with a group of small thieves who sold drugs, robbed, and stole bags. It was impossible for him to play things that were high class. You don't have to say what kind of choice I make. As the white man spoke, he took out a gun and pointed it at Lin Ge's waist. Carlos, today I'll let you remember that I, Matt, am not to be trifled with. Come with me right now. Do as I say, or I'll shoot. Lin Ge didn't say anything else. He looked at Su Yun, and Su Yun signaled him to ignore them and just follow. If it weren't for Su Yun, Lin Ge might have already turned hostile. In any case, the possibility of the other party shooting in this crowded place was almost zero. After all, the New York police were also paid. It was impossible for them to not do anything. As long as they were paid, they more or less had to fulfill some of their responsibilities. Su Yun signaled for Lin Ge to follow them. He knew that they would take them to a place where the police couldn't reach. In that kind of place, they could deal with these guys however they wanted. I'll listen to you. Let's go. Put the gun away. It won't be good for either of us if it misfires, Lin Ge said to Matt. We can settle our matters alone. What do you think? I can give you a chance to beat me up. Matt was excited when he heard this. He knew that Carlos was a useless guy who had been hollowed out by women and had no strength to truss a chicken. Matt's physical fitness was very good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the captain of the college football team. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth, so Matt really hoped to have a chance to teach Carlos a lesson with his own hands. The two of them were quickly brought to a relatively secluded street. Chapter 38-87. Su Yun looked up and glanced at the name of the street. This was the street named after the black freedom leader. Obviously, this was a paradise for black people. Matt, as a white man, actually brought them to a violent black neighborhood. This sounded really puzzling. However, this phenomenon was not difficult to explain. The proportion of white people in the United States had dropped to almost half. What did this mean? What was even more frightening was that the proportion of black newborns had surpassed white newborns. A few years ago, white people in the United States realized the seriousness of this situation. Although they were aware of the situation and launched large-scale activities, they did not change the situation. Instead, it worsened. Perhaps some people would say that black people, white people, and yellow people were all people and there was no difference. That was definitely something that only people who did not understand the United States would say. The crime rate of black people in the United States was 3 times that of white people in the United States and 5 times that of yellow people. Moreover, most of the crimes committed by black people in the United States were violent and brainless. White people in the United States committed many crimes because of financial crimes. This was the difference. There was no strong country in the world that was led by black people. Not to mention Osama, the United States under his leadership was not as powerful as it was in previous years. Moreover, the entire government was not black. Although Osama was black, the entire government was not black. South Africa used to be a first-class country. It was not led by black people at that time, but now? Black people personally ruined a good South Africa. Detroit in the United States was even worse. It directly went bankrupt. The Black Street in the United States could be regarded as the gates of hell. Su Yun and Lin Gu were brought to this street named after the black freedom leader. It could be said that it had become a social phenomenon in the United States. It was definitely a place where unemployed black people gathered. It was a place where guns, drugs, and robberies ran rampant. As soon as the two of them were brought into the street, many black people rushed out from all corners. These black people were all expressionless, but they looked like they wanted to skin people alive. "Do you think you can get out alive after coming here?" Matt sneered. He felt that he was in charge of the scene. "Do you dare to touch me?" Lin Gu raised his eyebrows in disdain. "I am from Huaxia. Try touching me if you dare. Don't you know that it is Huaxia that is getting stronger and stronger, while the American Empire is just a country that is going downhill? If you touch me, the consequences won't be so simple. It might cause an international conflict." International conflict. "I only know that the United States is the most powerful country in the world," Matt said in a proud tone. Lin Gu asked, "The most powerful country in the world? How powerful? Tell me, come, tell me." The U.S. Empire has set up military bases in more than 60 countries and regions around the world. Matt glared and said, "Look at the countries around Huaxia. Which one of them isn't a lackey of our American Empire? We've already surrounded Huaxia." "Yes, even you know that those small countries are lackeys, right?" Lin Gu said, "I admit that the United States has a lot of lackeys, but I want to tell you that lackeys will always be lackeys. They will always lie down and never stand up. Huaxia is a lion, a dragon. Do you think Huaxia will be afraid of barking dogs?" Matt's expression changed. The strategic straits around the world are the core interests of the American Empire. If the American Empire gets anxious, global trade will stop. Then why don't you try it? Stop global trade? When the time comes, your lackeys will bite you to death. Lin Gu spat. "There are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. You can't be so naive as to think that if the United States wants to stop global trade, all the lackeys will support it, right?" Matt was speechless. Lin Gu raised his eyebrows and motioned for him to continue. "The strategic resources around the world are under the control of the American Empire. From the Middle East to the North and South Poles, the shadow of the American Empire's army is everywhere. If we get anxious, the price of resources will immediately skyrocket." Matt cursed. "It's still the same thing. If a lackey is hungry, it will also bite its master." Lin Gu laughed. "So far, no fighter jet of the American Empire has dared to claim that it has the same performance as the F-22 fighter jet. After it takes off, the entire sky belongs to the American Empire." Matt roared. "Then try flying one. If you're so awesome, do you dare to enter Huaxia's airspace and try it?" Lin Gu continued to provoke. "The generals in the Pentagon can command individual soldiers to fight through the latest communication technology." Matt glared at him. Lin Gu looked at Su Yun and said confidently, "Let me tell you, the United States of Huaxia has a lot of outstanding talents. In single combat, they can stuff the heads of your generals in the Pentagon into their pants to smell the fragrance of chrysanthemums. The American Empire's aircraft carrier battle group can proudly announce that the area within 400 kilometers of the aircraft carrier is our external defense zone. Can you do it? You're really ignorant. Haven't you heard of Huaxia's nuclear submarines?" Lin Gu said, "Huaxia's nuclear submarines can endure loneliness, win wars, and sail the entire world's oceans. Huaxia's nuclear-powered attack submarine force has completed a simulated cruise missile saturation attack on the American Empire's aircraft carrier battle group. The combat power of our conventional submarine force isn't something you dare to act rashly. Matt was stunned. Without waiting for him to continue speaking, Lin Gu continued, with the American Empire's stinky character, if it wasn't for the fact that you're afraid of Hua Xia's nuclear submarines, you would have F*King attacked us with your aircraft carrier battle group long ago. Matt was speechless. If you're the world's most powerful, F*King awesome, and F*King arrogant world overlord, the United States Navy's aircraft carrier battle group commander, you're in charge of an aircraft carrier battle group, more than 10 warships equipped with the world's most advanced weapons, and a total displacement of more than 200,000 tons on the surface and underwater. You're in charge of more than 100 fixed-wing fighter jets and more than a dozen helicopters. The entire fleet covers hundreds of square nautical miles, and the aircraft carrier covers thousands of square nautical miles. Wouldn't you be grinning from ear to ear? Lin Gu suddenly changed the topic. Of course he wouldn't be able to sleep from laughing. This is the strength of the American Empire. We'll whip whoever we want. Matt added. Suddenly, the anti-submarine aircraft at the outermost edge of the fleet and the escort destroyers sent news that an unknown metallic echo has appeared in a certain position underwater in your fleet. Using the active sonar system, it's a submarine of unknown nationality. Lin Gu said, when the time comes, your aircraft carrier can only obediently retreat 200 nautical miles. Of course, it was impossible for a nuclear submarine to enter the aircraft carrier battle group and chase after the aircraft carrier for hundreds of nautical miles. Once, when Hua Xia's 093 and 094 left the military port and cruised to a certain part of the ocean, preparing to carry out a strategic strike on the target, the aircraft carrier had no choice but to retreat. This was the reason why the American Empire's aircraft carrier retreated during the crisis in the Taiwan Strait. It was absolutely impossible to use a submarine to track the aircraft carrier battle group at such a slow speed. If a submarine wanted to attack an aircraft carrier, it could only silently defend the enemy. No matter how advanced or silent a submarine was, once the surface ship's active sonar was turned on, it would be hopeless. The metallic echo of a submarine couldn't be eliminated very well. Once it was discovered, depth charges and anti-submarine torpedoes would definitely bury the submarine underwater. Therefore, a submarine was a strategic weapon in the end. Forcing an aircraft carrier back didn't require its positioning ability, quantity, or advanced technology. As long as the American Empire knew that Hua Xia had won, the American Empire would be afraid and not dare to act rashly. That would be enough. The magnificent Hua Xia was a civilization that played with strategy. What Sun Tzu's Art of War? What 36 stratagems? The American Empire was considered strange if they didn't die. The American Empire looks for outstanding talents all over the world to join our country. Many scientific and technological awards, including the Nobel Prize, were won by people from our country. Matt knew that he couldn't win against Lin Gu, so he went straight to the heart. Don't forget, you're also a citizen of the American Empire. You're a citizen of the American Empire. You're not a citizen of Hua Xia. Lin Gu was stunned for a moment, but he reacted quickly. I admit that I'm a citizen of the American Empire, but it's so powerful that it took 10 years to catch a Taliban. The American Empire is so powerful that it can't deal with the Taliban? The American Empire is so powerful that it retreated from Iraq with its tail between its legs? The American Empire is so powerful that the good southeast coast is about to become a violent zone for black people? This time, Matt was completely speechless. However, Lin Ji's words also angered the black brothers around him. They felt that they were being discriminated against. Lin Gu really was discriminating against them now. They were a bunch of jobless, violent, robbers, and drug traffickers. Why wouldn't they be discriminated against? No matter who they were, Lin Gu was discriminating against them. This had nothing to do with skin color, it had to do with people. Chapter 3888. Matt. What exactly do you want? I hope you can give us an answer as soon as possible. A black man stepped forward. He didn't want to be discriminated against anymore, and couldn't hold back his anger. I'm going to kill this B** starred right now. This B** starred is still useful. Matt hurriedly stopped him. Black people had always done things cleanly. They were definitely the kind of people who could fight and definitely weren't pushovers. It wasn't their fault. After all, since their ancestors had been reduced to slaves, those noble white people had treated them like this. If they were dissatisfied, they would beat them up or cripple them. Thus, there was this violence in their bones. They had been carrying it since they were in their mother's womb. They would fight if they wanted to and definitely wouldn't hesitate. Can we really squeeze a lot of money out of this guy? Another black man spoke up. He seemed to be the leader of this group. Of course I won't lie to you, Matt said. Kunta, I definitely won't lie to you. Trust me, as long as we control this guy, we can get a lot of money. Hundreds of millions of dollars? Kunta still looked doubtful. Of course, Matt said. I guarantee that with the support of this money, the Gant family's status among black people will definitely rise by several levels. Even Anthony, who plays in the NBA, will be willing to carry your shoes for you. Su Yun and Lin Gu usually liked to watch basketball. When they heard them mention the gangster name, they couldn't help but laugh. Are you guys not doing as well as that guy who plays basketball? Lin Gu said, come on, his main business is playing professional basketball, and his side job is being in the mafia. He's doing better than you guys. You still have the cheek to say that here? Kunta's expression changed when he heard Lin Ge's words. You know Anthony? Of course. Lin Gu said, when he was in Denver, I thought he was pretty good at basketball. After he came to New York, he really got worse and worse. Could it be that he's so focused on the mafia that he doesn't have any desire to win? Kunta, don't listen to his nonsense, Matt said. There's no way he knows Anthony. He was a star player in the American Professional Basketball Association. Although he was the least competitive and had the least achievements, he was the only one in high school who could compete with the chosen one, LeBron. He was extremely talented. The Gant family. Your ancestors were from West Africa, right? Su Yun, who had been silent all this time, suddenly asked. Kunta was stunned. How did you know? Su Yun nodded and didn't explain anything. Anyway, they probably wouldn't be able to understand even if he explained. A name was an important symbol of a person's identity. Therefore, every ethnic group gave it a very important connotation. Although most black people did not have much culture, the importance they attached to their names was something that many other races did not have. There were even many black people who believed that names were an important part of their personality, or even a part of their soul. Nameless people will be destroyed in this life and the next. As the saying goes, wounds can be treated, but misdeeds are difficult to cure. For black people, a social group that recorded a person's history and identity in oral form, the choice of a newborn's name was more significant than a social group with a written history. Even under slavery, black people worked hard to grasp their names and identify with their culture. Black Africans attached great importance to names. They saw names as closely related to fate, honor, and dignity. Names were seen as the foundation of a person. A solemn naming ceremony was held a few days after a newborn was born. Su Yun had seen a naming ceremony before. During the ceremony, a can of water was poured onto the roof. The oldest woman put the baby under the water and let him cry. Gifts were given as he cried. Then, a respected local elder would name the baby. Only a child with a name could become a member of the family. After the naming ceremony, people would worship their ancestors and bring the child to their grandfather's grave to be acknowledged. The names of the Yoruba people of West Africa were often made up of multiple syllables, each of which represented a certain meaning. A name could be a phrase or even a sentence, and the children's names represented the hopes of their parents. For Africans, a name was not just a symbol. It was the embodiment of a person's position in the family history and had a deep meaning. Of course, the racial catastrophe of the past was terrible. Black people were sold to America and became slaves. They left their homes and looked around. They had no relatives, no property, and even their freedom was taken away. Their African cultural complex was cut off, and even their original names were difficult to keep. Although there were differences in naming customs among black Africans, they all cherished their names. Therefore, no matter where they came from in Africa, the mental pain of losing their name was unbearable for ordinary people. This was the mental pressure that black people could not bear when they fell from freedom to slavery. White people realized that, in order to make black people accept their status as slaves, they had to let them recognize their own identity. Renaming slaves was an important means to reflect the master's authority and make slaves recognize reality. Being able to name others was a manifestation of dominance. In order to make black people forget their past and their former identity, white people first forced the slaves to give up their names and let their masters rename them. This was a sign that the black people's former self had died, and the new name represented a new identity. For a group of black people who placed great importance on names, losing their names had undoubtedly caused them serious psychological trauma. This caused him to suffer a great deal of mental pain. For them, losing their names meant that their past cultural traditions were cut off, and they were forced to forget their place in the history of their family. They also lost their dignity as human beings. Therefore, even under the pressure of slavery, black people had been trying to maintain their African cultural traditions. They continued and developed their African cultural complex in North America through naming. The first generation of black slaves and their children were mostly named by their masters. Starting from the second generation of black people born in North America, although a few slave owners still insisted on naming the slaves' descendants, many people handed over the right to name the slaves' newborns to the children's parents. On one hand, this was due to the increase in the number of black slaves, especially in large-scale plantations. The masters did not have much energy to name the newborns. On the other hand, it was the result of the slaves' own struggle, because they regarded naming their children as an important right. White people did not allow black slaves to use their own names. The main purpose was to make them forget their past history. Su Yun had read a documentary novel. It said that a black man was kidnapped by white people while logging in West Africa and transported to Virginia. The master named him Toby, and when his companions called him by that name, he refused to accept it. He repeatedly told them his name, and told them that he was a descendant of the Ginta family. He also passed on his family's history to his daughter in oral form. He repeatedly emphasized not only his name, but also his cultural identity. Some of the black people who were trafficked to North America in the early days successfully kept their African names. This Kunta in front of him cared so much about his family's name, which meant that he cared a lot about his family's name. Maybe this guy really was the child of the master's descendant in the documentary novel that Su Yun had read. Su Yun casually asked if he was West African, and he really was. It could all be said to be a coincidence. Kunta, ignore this guy. He's useless. Matt looked at Su Yun and waved his hand. Kill him. This guy was really ruthless. Lin Gu almost went up and killed him because of this sentence. Kill him. Kunta was stunned for a moment. He pointed at Lin Gu and said, "This Hua Xia can be exchanged for hundreds of millions of dollars, and this Hua Xia is just going to be killed? Is he not worth a single cent? Trust me, I know all too well that everyone around Carlos is a vampire, a parasite. They all rely on Carlos to survive," Matt said. "That's why he's useless. Just kill him. Be straightforward." Kunta was a little confused, but he still chose to believe Matt. After all, the temptation of hundreds of millions of dollars was especially great. Kunta gave his men a look. A black man behind Su Yun took out a dagger and walked straight towards Su Yun. P.S. Extra chapters are constantly being updated on the public WeChat account. Friends who want to kill time or want to know Su Yun's past can follow the Pen Spirits public WeChat account. It's very simple. Open WeChat, click on the upper right corner, click on Add Friend, click on the public account, enter QQ276432835, or just enter Pen Spirit is sleepwalking, search, follow. Once you've finished replying to any keywords, you'll be able to view the latest original chapters and the latest extra chapters. You can also participate in interactive discussions and have one-on-one exchanges. Chapter 3889. I'm telling you, he's worth a lot more than me. Ha ha, you black people are really brainless. Lin Gu looked up at the sky and laughed. Since your ancestors, you've done whatever a white man tells you to do. What kind of society are we in now? Why are you still so obedient when a white man tells you to do something? Kunta frowned and looked at Matt blankly. He had been at a loss the whole time. Kunta knew nothing about the kidnapper in front of him. Everything he knew was based on Matt's words. Matt said that he could get a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, so he believed him. I won't lie to you, Kunta. Think carefully about what I promised you. I don't want any of the money. I just want revenge, Matt said. If you really want the money, listen to me. You don't get up early without benefits. Even a fool knows that. Lin Gu sneered. You guys listen to everything he says and do everything according to his instructions. But have you seen the money? Not a single cent, right? How can you believe a white man's words when you haven't seen a single cent? Lin Ji's words caused an uproar among the black brothers. To be honest, that was indeed the case. With your IQ, you don't think things through at all. Who else can the white man fool if not you? You don't even know anything now. You don't understand anything at all, and you believe him? Lin Gu continued. Who else can he fool if not you? I didn't lie to you, Matt said anxiously. Everything I said is true. Black brothers, you're living in the world's biggest scam, but you don't know anything. Lin Gu continued. In any case, black people rarely use their brains when doing things. Any black person who liked to use their brains wouldn't be unemployed in a place like this. So, many times they would believe whatever others said. Think about it. The American empire keeps emphasizing that it's a Christian country. In fact, the American empire doesn't belong to any religious country at all. The American empire emphasizes that it's a Christian country just to deceive people. Lin Gu began to bluff. The president using his hand to take the oath of office is already a violation of the U.S. Constitution. Those Christians and gays who believe that only Christians can be president of the United States have obviously never read the Constitution of the United States. In fact, what Lin Gu said was not baseless. Some of what he said was true. However, if he wanted to fool this group of black people, he needed to exaggerate the truth. The Constitution of the United States clearly states in Section 4, Article 6 that religious belief shall not be a necessary qualification for holding any office or public office in the United States. According to the records of the Constitutional Assembly, this clause was unanimously adopted. Lin Gu continued, when the president takes office, he doesn't need to swear an oath to God with his hand on the Bible. He doesn't even need to swear an oath. He can use a solemn declaration instead. According to Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of the United States, the oath of office of the President of the United States should not contain any religious overtones. Listening to Lin Ji's eloquent speech, the group of black people was dumbfounded. To be honest, they didn't really understand. Their reaction speed wasn't that fast. However, Lin Gu had no intention of stopping. He continued to brainwash this group of people. Think about it. The laws of the United States prohibit any religion from entering schools to preach. Although the United States constantly emphasizes that citizens have the freedom to believe in religion, the various scientific fields of the United States empire don't allow any religion to enter. Therefore, the religious policy of the United States empire is to deceive. The United States empire wants other countries to believe in Christianity and spread Christianity. Then, it uses Christianity to brainwash the workers of other countries, so that the workers of other countries can be at ease as slaves to Christians. Lin Gu spoke very passionately. Think about it. Don't the white people want you to believe in God? The black people were speechless. What Lin Gu said was the truth. In fact, the United States empire wants to destroy and suppress the cultures of other countries at all costs. Of course, this includes the Japanese culture and the traditional culture of Huaxia. Only when the United States empire completely destroys the traditional culture of Huaxia, then the Huaxia will lose the most precious Confucian culture. Lin Gu said, in fact, you have already lost your traditional culture. You have been deceived by the white people of the United States empire. Don't you think so? Devout Christians always emphasized that everything was given to them by Jesus Christ. Many lazy people in the United States Empire believed this. They believed that their food, clothing, housing, and transportation were all given to them by God. Therefore, devout Christians had to thank God no matter what they did or obtained. However, those Christians who didn't work obtained the material things they obtained through improper means. They regarded the things they obtained through improper means as gifts from God. What kind of logic was this? All of this was brainwashing. The Huaxia relied on their traditional culture to resist Christian culture. The Confucian culture was the culture that was truly important. It was the culture that was worth studying and learning. Although the black man might not understand what Lin Gu was saying, he was intimidated by Lin Ji's aura. This way, they didn't dare to act rashly. Do you understand now? Lin Gu said, you have been living in a country that has been deceived by white people. Now, this white person is trying to deceive you. Do you still believe him? Kunta's expression became more and more hesitant. Kunta, don't listen to his nonsense. The Huaxia people are best at glib tongues. Matt was anxious. He was worried that the black people would be fooled. The glib tongues are the white people in the United States. Lin Gu said, look at your new President Trump. Other than his glib tongue, he's a complete idiot. His big mouth doesn't go through his brain, and he was elected. That's really scary. Kunta looked left at Lin Gu and right at Matt. He didn't know who to listen to. What matters in this society? Isn't it just US dollars? Lin Gu continued, how much money do you want? Tell me. How much can he give you? I'll double it. Don't listen to him. He has no money. I told you before that he's selling all his assets. As long as we control him, we can talk to the meat shield. Matt said. Trust me. You can get more money this way. Kunta had a splitting headache. He didn't want to make meaningless choices. Tell me how much money I can get. Kunta glared at Matt. He wanted to know a number. A few hundreds of millions of dollars. Matt said. Kunta didn't look away. He was still staring at Matt. I want a specific number. Hundreds of millions. How much is it? 1, 2, or 3, 4, 5, or 6. Do you understand what I mean by the specific numbers? Matt was stunned. How could he answer such a question? He couldn't answer it at all. Well, of course we have to wait until this is over before we have a specific answer. How can I know now? Matt said, but I'm sure that his house in Los Angeles can be sold for hundreds of millions. He has at least hundreds of millions of dollars to give us. Kunta's expression was clearly starting to become suspicious. How could he not be suspicious when Matt couldn't even give him a specific number? Lin Ji's ability to bluff was quite good. He made up a bunch of nonsense that was completely irrelevant, and Kunta and his black buddies were all dumbfounded. I'm just telling the truth, right? Lin Gu immediately said, white people in the United States are just so unreliable. There's nothing they can say that can be trusted. In Huaxia, that would be called a liar, a swindler from all over the world. Kunta and his black friends were clearly influenced by Lin Gu. If you ask me, I know the specific number. I know better than anyone how much money I have, and I know better than anyone how much money my brother has. Lin Gu said, he doesn't know anything, and he's telling you to kill people. You'd be really stupid if you listened to him. Kunta looked at Lin Gu blankly. Then tell me, how much is he worth? He's worth tens of billions, Lin Gu said. I won't talk about the fraction. I'm worth less than a fraction of his. Kunta and his black friends were instantly in an uproar. In comparison, kidnapping Su Yun was clearly more reliable than kidnapping Lin Gu. Chapter 3890. Now you know who's better at bluffing, right? He dares to spout nonsense without knowing anything, Lin Gu said. He's obviously trying to scam you. Once you believe him, you'll suffer a huge loss. Leave my brother here and toss me out to report the news. The money you'll get will be more than a few 100 million. You can even get a few billion. Who doesn't know how to spout nonsense? Anyway, these people are easy to bluff. If you don't know how to bluff in the United States, you will not be able to survive. In fact, many people understood that if they wanted to do well in the United States, they had to rely on bluffing. This was a country that established a country by bluffing. Whether it was to their own citizens or to other countries, they had perfected the essence of the word, bluffing. If the United States sells crutches, their sales will definitely be higher than their own mountains. It is not without foundation that the United States is good at bluffing. Think about the US dollar. This is the world's biggest Ponzi scheme directed by the United States. Many years ago, no country was aware of this problem, and it was only in recent years that this problem was slowly exposed. Almost the whole world was involved in the Ponzi scheme of the United States. Everyone slowly lost confidence in the US dollar. Su Yun once read a story. It was very true. A long time ago, the United States was still young. It was a very moral country. He worked very hard and established many very successful businesses. He became abnormally rich and hoarded more gold than anyone else in the world. However, when the United States began to grow old, it began to forget the values of its youth. It began to make some bad decisions. Some of its relatives began to take advantage of it. One of them was a very cunning grandson called the Federal Reserve. One day, the Federal Reserve brought his banker friend to visit the United States. What happened next changed the course of the United States forever. Even though the United States was the richest country in the world, the Federal Reserve still convinced the United States to issue some debt to further improve its standard of living. The Federal Reserve used its printing machine to print paper money in exchange for the IOUs signed by the United States. Because the paper money was backed by the United States gold, every country would think that it was valuable. This way, the United States could use the paper money to buy anything it liked in the world. After the Americans started doing this, they slowly became addicted to it. The Americans wanted to use paper money to buy all the beautiful things in the world. The Federal Reserve took the IOUs from the United States and auctioned them off to all the bankers in the world. However, there was a problem here. The IOU signed by the United States had to be returned with interest. When the time came for the IOU to be returned, the U.S. Empire would not be able to repay the principal and interest. This would cause the U.S. Empire to be unable to buy the things they liked. Therefore, the U.S. Empire had signed more IOUs than before. That way, the U.S. Empire might have enough paper money to repay his debts. As time continued to pass, this pattern continued to repeat itself. The United States continued to borrow more and more money to pay off its old debts. At the same time, because the banknotes used by the United States were backed with gold, the rest of the world decided to use the banknotes of the United States to conduct bilateral trade. This made the United States the biggest beneficiary, because the rest of the world became very willing to exchange all kinds of resources and goods for the United States gold-backed banknotes. However, in the end, the rest of the world began to suspect that the amount of gold-backed banknotes issued by the United States might have far exceeded the amount of gold held by the United States. This caused the smart countries to sell their US dollars and start to buy gold instead. At this time, the United States did not have enough gold to support its banknotes, and this mechanism began to collapse. Under such circumstances, the United States Empire announced that its banknotes were no longer backed with gold. However, it insisted that the world should continue to use US dollars, because the United States Empire was still the richest country in the world, and every country should believe in the United States Empire's promise. In the end, the rest of the world continued to trust the United States Empire, although the United States Empire's US dollars were different from before. When the United States Empire became more and more greedy, it began to issue IOUs indiscriminately, and it spent money at a speed that no one could have imagined. The great business that the United States Empire had built when it was young began to decline, but at the same time, the United States Empire began to buy more and more things from all over the world. The amount of things it bought was much more than what it sold. Other countries were happy to accept the United States Empire's banknotes because they could use its banknotes to conduct bilateral trade. However, the amount of U.S. Empire's banknotes piled up like a mountain had actually exceeded the needs of the trade. Because they were not sure how the mountain of banknotes should be used, other countries began to lend their US dollars to the United States Empire. In the end, the United States Empire owed trillions of US dollars to many countries around the world. Even if the value of these US dollars depreciated at a rate of 10% every year, the United States Empire could still persuade other countries around the world to lend to the United States Empire at an interest rate of less than 3% per year. Now, the amount of debt owed by the United States Empire had increased by 5,000 times compared to when the Federal Reserve first approached the United States Empire and proposed this terrible plan. The United States Empire now owed all its creditors more than 10 or even 20 trillion US dollars. At the same time, the United States Empire also made a payment promise worth more than 2 trillion US dollars in the future. Even a fool would know that this promise would never be fulfilled. On the other hand, the value of the banknotes printed by the Federal Reserve had always been less than 5% of the United States Empire's IOUs. The United States Empire became more and more worried. Many countries were warning it that the entire system was about to collapse. If the United States Empire admitted how fraudulent its current financial arrangements were, then the entire world would refuse to supply goods to the United States Empire in exchange for banknotes. At the same time, the entire world would not provide financing to the United States Empire at such a low interest rate. If the entire world lost confidence in the United States Empire's US dollars and stopped using them, then the United States Empire would be finished. Moreover, the United States Empire had so many lazy people who were rescued and raised. This was a blow that the United States Empire could not bear. During the year of the Beijing Olympics, the financial crisis in the United States Empire almost caused the financial system that the United States Empire relied on to collapse. The desperate United States Empire could only turn to the Federal Reserve for help. Then, the Federal Reserve began to print banknotes on an unprecedented scale out of thin air. The Federal Reserve hoped that the entire world would not notice what it was doing. This seemed to work in the short term until an even more serious financial crisis came. The United States Empire began to issue a large number of IOUs again. The Federal Reserve also began to print a large number of banknotes in an attempt to fix the system. However, their desperate attempts to keep the system operating were ultimately futile. Now, countries all over the world began to realize that they were involved in a huge Ponzi scheme designed by the United States Empire and the Federal Reserve. All countries slowly began to lose confidence in the US dollar. Over the years, no one wanted to lend money to the United States Empire at such a low interest rate. Many countries also began to ask the United States Empire to pay more banknotes in exchange for goods they wanted. This was the reason why the lives of many ordinary people in the United States Empire had plummeted. Because the United States Empire no longer had the ability to circulate the US dollar around the world, the United States Empire could no longer spend as extravagantly as before. In fact, the United States Empire had fallen into a deep depression because the system it had built was constantly disintegrating. The United States Empire used to be the richest country in the world. However, it was now about to become a bankrupt and exhausted country. One had to know that the United States Empire was shouldering a terrifying amount of debt. If the United States Empire fell one day, the world would not sympathize with it. This was because many countries in the world would celebrate the fall of the United States Empire. Right now, the United States Empire had not fallen yet. Everyone was living in this huge Ponzi scheme. Those who had US dollars in their hands should quickly throw them away. Think about it. 30 years ago in Huaxia, 1 US dollar could be exchanged for 8 RMB. 10,000 RMB could be exchanged for 80,000 RMB. 80,000 RMB could be exchanged for any 3 rooms in the Third Ring Road. Today, 30 years later, 1 US dollar could be exchanged for 6 RMB. 10,000 RMB was 60,000 RMB. 60,000 RMB could only buy half of a small toilet in the Third Ring Road. Excluding the soaring prices in Huaxia, the US dollar was depreciating very quickly. If they did not hurry up and get rid of the US dollars in their hands, they would be the ones who would be cheated. The United States Empire was so good at bluffing. Therefore, if they wanted to survive in the United States, they had to be better at bluffing. Today, Lin Guo would be able to fool these black people with his lies. Chapter 3891. In any case, many people in the United States had already been fooled by the lies of the politicians, and they were quite gullible. Matt, you have to give us an explanation, right? Kunta's tone was already angry. But Matt didn't know how to explain it clearly at all. However, he knew the temperaments of black people. Once they were certain of something, it was very difficult to change their minds. Now that these black people had already fallen into the other party's trap, Matt knew very well that there was almost nothing he could do. What else is there to explain? It's very simple. Lin Gu continued. He told you that as long as you help him, you'll get the dollars, and he doesn't want a single cent. He just wants revenge. There's a problem with that. What's the problem? Kunta was completely confused by Lin Ge's words. If he really wants money, do you think people who have a chance to get the money will say that they don't want a single cent? If you can get $1 billion from me, and he says he wants 100 million, then he'll give you the remaining 900 million, won't you still agree? There's no need for him to give up the benefits he can get, Lin Gu explained. Kunta and the other black people couldn't help but nod. Lin Ge's words were absolutely reasonable. In the face of benefits, especially huge benefits, it was impossible for anyone to give up without a good reason. Who would be stupid enough to say no to such a large sum of money? Lin Gu smiled. But Matt dares to say that. It's such a large sum of money, and he doesn't want it just like that. Don't you think there's a problem with that? Kunta was stunned. Of course there was a problem. Unless Matt had an IQ, he wouldn't give up such a large sum of money. At the end of the day, everything he said to you was a lie. Lin Gu continued. He just wants revenge. As long as you can help him hurt me, he doesn't care if you can get the money or not. Kunta's face changed instantly. At this moment, his anger towards Matt was almost unquenchable. That's what I'm talking about. Lin Gu still didn't stop. In order to get you to help him, he gave you a blank check for a few $100 million, and then you worked for him. He's playing you. If you really dare to hurt us, not only will you not get the money, you will also be wanted by the police for hurting us. No way. The police won't dare to provoke us. Matt hurriedly said, They're just two Chinese. Why would the police make such a big fuss over two Chinese? Su Yun sneered. That's right. The police of the American Empire will not go to war with the gangs for the sake of Chinese people. However, they will go to war with the gangs for the sake of rich people. If you knew how much money the US government can get from us every year, you wouldn't act so rashly. Kunta didn't dare to act rashly. Let's not talk about the relevant departments. Use your brains and think about it. If you touch us, won't you offend some people that you can't afford to offend? Lin Gu chuckled. The rich people of Huaxia are like a delicious cake in the eyes of many people in the American Empire. However, this cake is not something that anyone can eat casually. Kunta, don't listen to their nonsense. Matt said. I'm 100% sure that this guy's rich father has been killed in Huaxia. If he sells his family fortune now, he won't be able to survive. Don't be fooled by him. Won't be able to survive? What kind of country do you think the American Empire is? The American Empire is different from Huaxia. Lin Gu said, if you want to survive in Huaxia, you have to rely on connections. However, in the American Empire, you have to rely on money. It's a capitalistic country. I have plenty of money. You think I won't be able to survive? At this point, Kunta was 90% on Lin Ge's side. No, it's not like that. Matt shook his head frantically. If it's not like that, then what is it like? Lin Gu said. Give me an answer. Matt was speechless. He didn't have an answer. His mind was in a mess. Matt, how dare you trick us? Kunta said, gritting his teeth. From the beginning, someone had told him not to trust a white man so easily. However, Kunta had been fooled by the US dollar and had forgotten how much white people like to deceive black people. One had to know that many of their ancestors had been deceived by the white people and kidnapped to this continent to become their slaves. It was the white people who had destroyed the development of the black race's civilization. It was the white people who had destroyed the social progress that they should have followed. This had led to the disconnect between black people and other races today. How could a race that had been dragged directly from a tribe to modern society not be looked down upon by other races? Except for those sports stars and entertainment stars, it could be said that almost 99% of black people didn't have a good life. They didn't have a good life at all. If being black was happy, MJ wouldn't have turned himself white. It was hard to tell if the news that he had severe vitiligo was true or not, right? There were many people with vitiligo, but how serious was it to turn a black person into a white person? I didn't trick you. I really didn't. Kunta, you have to believe me. I'm your brother. Matt saw that a black man was already aiming a gun at him, so he quickly raised his hands. Because Matt also had a gun in his hand, the black men thought he was dangerous and aimed at him. Matt raised his hands so that they could see that although he had a gun in his hand, he definitely didn't intend to shoot them. Matt's gun was hanging from his finger. Kunta stepped forward and snatched the gun from Matt. Because he used too much force, Matt's finger was bruised, but Matt didn't dare to say a word of pain, let alone hold his finger and cry out in pain. Because he had to let all the black men see his empty hands so that no one would shoot him. Please believe me, you have to believe me, Matt kept explaining. You don't even know how much money I can make in the end, and I actually believed you? Kunta was angry. He had been fooled, so he definitely wasn't happy. Yeah, I'm also puzzled. How did you fall for his nonsense? Lingu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you really make a move, you'll die very miserably. Kunta glared at Lingu, as if unhappy that Lingu looked down on him. Even if I do it, you can't do anything to me. You don't really think you're doing well in New York, do you? Lingu sneered. Do you know what level of gangsters I've been in contact with? You'll be scared to death if I tell you. Of course, Kunta didn't buy it. He directly pointed the gun at Lin Ge's head. Then tell me something that can scare me to death. If you can't, I'll kill you. Black men had always been impulsive. So when the gun was aimed at Lin Ge's head, Su Yun was quite nervous. This wasn't a joke. At this distance, no one could dodge a bullet. Su Yun had to find a chance to make a move. Okay, then listen carefully, Lingu said word by word. Todd Baldwin. Todd Baldwin. When Lingu said the name, Kunta was stunned. Of course, a name couldn't scare someone to death. No name could scare someone to death. But Lingu had brought Baldwin up to the table. Kunta, who was a gangster in New York, really didn't dare to offend him. After all, compared to Todd Baldwin's criminal empire, Kunta was nothing. Even the subordinate of Baldwin's subordinate could kill Kunta on the streets of New York. Baldwin was a big shot at a height that Kunta couldn't reach. Do you dare to kill me? If you don't, put the gun down. Lingu said, if you don't believe me, you can ask your connections how much Baldwin gets from me every year. If you dare to touch me, it's like touching his cake. Do you think he'll let you go? Of course not. Kunta was stunned, but he couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. It would be too shameful to say it out loud. He had never felt so humiliated before. Put the gun down now, and we can still talk. Lingu said, I believe you want to talk more than I do. It's good for all of us to solve the misunderstanding. The only one who's unhappy is Matt. Chapter 3892. That's right. The only one who wasn't happy was Matt himself. Kunta instantly came to a realization. The gap between Kunta and Baldwin was immeasurable, so he didn't dare to challenge him. He put down his gun and pulled Matt in front of him. You really had a hard time tricking me today, did you know that? No, that's not it. Kunta, listen to me. It's all a misunderstanding. None of this is true. It's all a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. I really didn't trick you. I'm really telling the truth. Matt said. He's not telling the truth. Don't fall for his trick. I think I fell for your trick. Kunta pushed Matt to the ground. You want to use me? You're really too bold. It's not that he's bold. It's just that he doesn't treat black people like humans at all. Lin Gu added fuel to the fire. The anger in Kunta's heart burned even more fiercely with a bang. Matt cried bitterly in his heart. He realized that if this continued, he would be played to death. Carlos. You can't do this to me. You can't do this. Did I provoke you? You're the one who brought people to provoke me. Lin Gu glanced at him. Now you're saying this. Do you think I'm a philanthropist? Kunta gestured, and two black men suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Matt's hands. Before Matt could resist, Kunta's fist hit Matt's stomach. Matt almost threw up his dinner from last night. The punch hit the center of his stomach, and he broke out in a cold sweat from the pain. As soon as Kunta attacked, the black men couldn't control their hands and feet. They surrounded Matt and beat him up. By the time the guys surrounding Matt dispersed, Kunta's face was bruised and swollen. His cheekbones were swollen higher than his eyebrows, and his lower lip was like a sausage. In short, he was in so much pain that he even wanted to die. Kunta, you should choose to believe me. You shouldn't believe them. Everything I said is true. You'll regret treating me like this. Matt really wanted to die. Kunta, however, looked at Matt in disdain. I'm already giving you face by not killing you. There's really no use for you to keep this kind of person. Since he failed to trick you this time, he'll trick you again next time. Lin Gu still didn't stop adding oil to the fire. I don't know what kind of temper you have, but if I were you, I would definitely kill him directly to prevent him from scheming against me in the future. If I'm not careful, I'll be killed by him sooner or later. Hearing that, Matt hurriedly waved his hand. Kunta, we've known each other for so many years, so you know what kind of person I am. I'm not that kind of person. Only you know what kind of person you are. Lin Gu continued to dig a hole. You've known me for so many years, and you know me so well. You also know what kind of relationship Baldwin and I have. You still ask them to help you kill me. Aren't you pushing them into a fire pit? You know about his relationship with Baldwin? Kunta was even angrier when he heard this. This was really trying to kill him. I don't know. If I knew, then Matt couldn't explain himself anymore. What about you? Kunta punched him again. That was because Matt had told him that he knew this Carlos very well. He knew every move Carlos made, so he knew how much money Carlos had. It was because Kunta believed this that he agreed to help Matt deal with this Carlos. Otherwise, why would Kunta do such a thing? You said you know him very well, you know everything about him. And in the end, what do you know? I want to ask you, what do you know? Kunta glared at Matt. Lin Gu looked at Su Yun. Seeing that Su Yun had no intention of stopping him, he continued to add fuel to the fire. Since you know so much about me, you know that I'm selling houses and cars. Do you really not know that all my assets are going to be invested in Baldwin Group? Kunta broke out in a cold sweat when he heard this. If he really did use the money, it would mean that he was going to steal Baldwin's cake. What did that mean? In New York, no one dared to lay their hands on Baldwin's cake. No matter how powerful a gang was, no one dared to challenge Baldwin. I don't know. I don't know about this at all. How is this possible? Matt was shocked. Didn't you say that you're very close with the Meat Shield and that you've gained his trust? The Meat Shield thinks of you as a brother? Lin Gu sneered. Then how can you not know that he's already in Colombia? Kunta clenched his fists tighter and tighter. What else could someone who went to Colombia do? 4 people in their line of work. What they were going to do in Colombia was definitely related to drugs, and if it was related to drugs, it would definitely be related to Baldwin. The Meat Shield has always been by my side as a bodyguard. Those who are familiar with him know that he wants to make easy money by being by my side. Lin Gu continued, so, he didn't go to Colombia to look for Baldwin to sell drugs. If not for selling drugs, then for what? Do you still need me to say it? Kunta didn't have a high IQ, but he knew very well what other businesses Baldwin had apart from his drug empire. Baldwin's businesses were involved in all aspects. So, apart from drugs, his other most profitable business was money laundering. Not only did he launder the dirty money from drug trafficking through his money empire, but he also helped many people with dirty money launder their dirty money. The endless flow of dirty money into Baldwin's money empire made Baldwin's criminal empire more and more stable. If he wasn't looking for Baldwin to sell drugs, then he was looking for money laundering. Kunta was starting to understand something now. Matt, you don't know anything. Your self-righteous decision almost got me killed. You be ****. I don't know. I really don't know. Kunta, if I knew that Todd Baldwin was involved, I wouldn't have messed with him even if you beat me to death. Matt's eyes were filled with fear. This fear couldn't be concealed at all. Kunta believed Matt's words. Because no one would reach out to touch Baldwin's cake even if they knew that it was Baldwin's cake. If that happened, the only outcome would be death. The fear on Matt's face became more and more obvious. His body couldn't help but tremble slightly. He really didn't expect to get into such big trouble. Originally, he just wanted to get revenge and get rid of the hatred in his heart. He didn't expect to get into this kind of trouble. Forgive me, Kunta, I really don't know. Really? Matt shook his head in fear. Now you know how unreliable he is. Lin Gu smiled. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't lower myself to your level. Count yourselves lucky. If I'm in a bad mood, each and every one of you is dead. In fact, black people bullied the weak and feared the strong. Just look at Russia. There were very few black people in Russia. Those who dared to hang out in Russia were probably very powerful people. Otherwise, they were people who had long lost their dignity. That was because the old Russians in Russia were more conceited and xenophobic. They wouldn't feed black people for free, nor would they care about the racist weapons of black people. If they had the ability, they would eat. If they didn't, they would get beaten up and get lost. It was that simple. That was why there were very few black people in Russia. That was because black people knew very well that it was almost impossible to just eat and wait for death in Russia. They were lazy and could only be stinky beggars. They would often get beaten up by a few old Russians. Naturally, there were very few black people in Russia. Today, when Lin Gu glared at them, the group of black people who were originally rubbing their hands together became obedient. The reason was very simple. They bullied the weak and feared the strong. In fact, there were a lot of people in this world who bullied the weak and feared the strong. But those who bullied the weak and feared the strong would only make one choice when they met an opponent that they couldn't resist at all. They would kneel down and obediently lick their shoes. At this time, Lin Gu showed an overwhelming advantage. He played a trump card like Baldwin. Kunta and his black brothers naturally bowed their heads. Not to mention Kunta, even Matt wanted to stuff his head into his pants and beg for forgiveness. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.